I was clearly training in martial arts. How I became a being with supernatural powers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201 Meeting. Evil Power. Sacrifice. Qin Yang pondered in silence. These words seemed difficult to connect with the Temple of Questioning the Heart. But he naturally believed in Liu Yan. This person's character was indeed impeccable. I will report this matter when I go back. If it really involves sacrifice or something like that, our patrol of the sky can also intervene. Qin Yang thought for a while and said lightly, well, I will secretly investigate the Temple of Questioning the Heart these days. Liu Yan is not a brainless person. Generally speaking, if the opponent is weaker than himself, he will go in directly. But the Temple of Questioning the Heart is obviously not weak, not to mention that it has some connection with the Blackfish building behind it. In this case, you can only outsmart it. It would be better to use the power of the patrol of the sky. That's fine. Remember to be careful. So many people died in the Blackfish building this time, and they will probably hunt you down at all costs. Qin Yang reminded. He was able to offend the Blackfish building and be safe and sound, all thanks to the support of the patrol of the sky. But Liu Yan is just a spiritual master who travels around, and the Blackfish building naturally has no fear. The Blackfish house can't find me. Liu Yan smiled confidently. Qin Yang said no more and asked, how can I contact you later? Go to the Questioning Heart Temple. I should stay in the Questioning Heart Temple for a while. Liu Yan had already thought of a countermeasure. Questioning Heart Temple. Qin Yang was stunned at first, but then he understood. Liu Yan was taking advantage of the dark under the lamp. Only if the disguise is good enough, there is no need to worry about being found by the Blackfish house, and you can secretly investigate the Questioning Heart Temple. Then wait for my news. Qin Yang nodded. By the way, did you come here specially after receiving the news that I would be assassinated by the Blackfish house? Liu Yan asked softly. No. You are lucky, to be honest. Qin Yang almost forgot about this matter. He said, it's about Zhang Kangjun. The two murderers who killed him have been beheaded by me, and I thought I would come here to tell you. He didn't tell the whole story. He would not tell anyone about the secret realm of the Immortal Mansion. Liu Yan did not ask any more questions. In this way, Brother Zhang can also rest in peace. At this time, wontons were also served. After eating, the two of them left separately. Outside the suburban villa, a man with black and white hair stood in the pavilion of the pond, looking at the koi swimming below, his face gloomy. The second floor owner can't even deal with a heavenly soul master, the long-haired man said coldly. When we arrived near Zuaniuan Temple, it had become a ruin. We only found some burnt ashes and ashes. A man in black said cautiously. Waste. The long-haired man had lost his former restraint and cursed out loud. He paused and asked again, have you confirmed the whereabouts of Taoist Liu Yan now? No. We are still searching. The man in black replied hurriedly. If Taoist Liu Yan is not found within today, you don't have to come back. The long-haired man snorted coldly. The man in black was so scared that his face turned pale, but he could only agree. A bunch of trash. The long-haired man grabbed the railing and cursed again. Recently, Blackfish Tower has been in trouble. First, the base was destroyed by Qin Yang, and the third floor owner was also killed by Qin Yang. Now even the second floor owner was killed by a heavenly soul spirit master. No. With the strength of the second floor owner, how could he die in the hands of a heavenly soul spirit master? There must be something strange. Who is behind this? Could it be the Sky Patrol Division? The long-haired man's eyes flickered. Sky Patrol Division, Demon Slaying Hall, Tea Room. After hearing what Qin Yang said, Leng Kang sighed and said, we actually already know what you said. Qin Yang frowned. Even we can't move the heart-searching temple. It's not that we can't move, it's just that the time has not come yet. Come with me. Leng Kang stood up. He took Qin Yang to a quiet courtyard. As soon as he entered, Qin Yang saw the head of the division, Song Yejun, squatting down, taking care of the flowers and plants in the flower bed. Speaking of which, he had met this chief several times, but never talked to him. Song Yechen saw Leng Kang bringing Qin Yang over and smiled slightly. What's the matter, Chief? Qin Yang found something strange about the questioning heart temple. I think if you give him an answer, he might understand better. Leng Kang explained his purpose. The questioning heart temple is indeed a cancer. Song Yechen stood up inside. Sit down first. There was a stone table and several stone benches in the small courtyard. The three of them sat down casually. Qin Yang, do you know my origins? Song Yechen suddenly asked. I've heard a little. The chief was transferred from Daewoo Imperial City a few years ago. Qin Yang was neither humble nor arrogant. Yes, I came from Daewoo Imperial City 3 years ago. Then do you know why I was transferred from Daewoo Imperial City specifically? Song Yechen asked again. I don't know. Qin Yang shook his head slightly. It's very simple. I came here for Marquis Fu Hei. Over the years, the imperial court has declined, and rebellions have occurred from time to time. Marquis Fu Hei has a large army and is entrenched in Yangning Prefecture. According to intelligence, he seems to be entangled with the evil cult on the other side. If Marquis Fu Hei rebels, Yangning Prefecture will fall directly, so the imperial court sent me here to keep an eye on Marquis Fu Hei and prevent him from doing anything wrong. Song Yechen spoke calmly, but these words made Qin Yang's expression slightly moved. This is definitely a shocking secret. I'm afraid that the only people in the entire patrol department who know this secret are the 3 people in this courtyard. Then why has the chief of the department been attacking the aristocratic families these days? Is it to paralyze the Marquis Fu Hei mansion? Qin Yang thought of Song Yechen's actions these days and was thoughtful. I have this thought. In Yangning Prefecture, Fu Hei Hao mansion is a real giant. The 50,000 Betty Jiao army, Blackfish Tower, and Questioning Heart Temple are actually the forces of Fu Hei Hao Mansion. As far as I know, 3 of the 9 major families in the city have close ties with Fu Hei Hao Mansion. If I don't purge the Sky Patrol Department, how can I compete with Fu Hei Hao Mansion? Song Yechen said lightly. In front of Fu Hei Hao Mansion, even the Sky Patrol Department seems very weak. Just hearing that series of names, Qin Yang was a little frightened. Are you scared? Song Yechen looked at Qin Yang's expression and asked softly. That's not the case, but I'm still surprised. I didn't expect the power of Fu Hei Hao Mansion to be so huge. Qin Yang shook his head. So I just told you that Questioning Heart Temple cannot be touched for the time being. Leng Kang said. Questioning Heart Temple is different from Blackfish Tower. Blackfish Tower is just an underground organization that cannot be put on the stage. But Questioning Heart Temple is one of the 4 major sects, with many masters. Once they start, the noise will be too big. In recent years, the Sky Patrol Department has kept silent, seemingly unaware of the strangeness of the Temple of Inquiry. Even the Sky Patrol Department is like this, not to mention the government offices controlled by the aristocratic families, which will not offend the Fu Hei Marquis Mansion for this. Chapter 202, Setting the Game. But the Questioning Heart Temple secretly captured so many people back. The longer it takes, the more dangerous it may be. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. He felt that with the power and financial resources of the Fu Hei Marquis's mansion, it should not need to do this kind of slave business to make money. Among them, either practicing evil skills, or taking human lives to hold sacrificial ceremonies. This is also what I'm worried about. Over the years, I'm afraid that there are thousands of people who have been secretly abducted and sold to the Questioning Heart Temple. So these days I have been stepping up to purge the people from the noble families, so that I can concentrate my efforts on dealing with the Questioning Heart Temple and the Fu Hei Marquis Mansion behind it. Song Yechen said in a deep voice. Especially recently, don't think that the Fu Hei Marquis Mansion has no movement. According to some clues, the Fu Hei Marquis Mansion has been in close contact with the other Shore sect recently. Leng Kang added. Manager Leng, you brought me here to see the chief today. I think there should be arrangements. Qin Yang smiled lightly. Well, the arrangements for these days are almost done. In a few days, we need to put on a good show and completely clean up the people from the noble families. Song Yechen nodded gently. Don't worry, I know your character. You don't have to do anything this time. You can earn 800 contribution points just by showing up. Leng Kang also spoke up. You can earn 800 contribution points just by showing up. Tell me about it. Qin Yang was very interested. A few days later, a medium-sized ghost weapon was suspected to have appeared in Chenghui County, Yangning City. The entire county was contaminated, and the number of casualties reached more than 100,000. However, this news was blocked by the Patrol Sky Division, and did not cause any unrest in Yangning City. In a mansion. Wukan, this is your best chance. In order to suppress the ghost weapon, Song Yejun will send Leng Kang, Qin Yang and others to Chenghui County. Ma Cheng quietly took out a note. Wukan opened the note, and saw that it was a route map. This route starts from Yangning City, and goes all the way to Chenghui County City. The meaning is quite obvious. I also heard about the incident in Chenghui County City. Song Yejun has even sent Leng Kang out now. It seems that he is really anxious. Wukan put away the note. It's our luck that has come. Once a medium-sized ghost weapon spread, the consequences will be disastrous. Song Yejun can't be anxious. Ma Cheng's eyes were sinister. These days, ghost weapons have indeed appeared quite frequently. I don't know what's wrong with this world, but it's just a good thing for us. Once Leng Kang, Qin Yang and others die, Song Yejun will have no one to use. At that time, you will be his right-hand man, and our family will be able to regain our position. Wukan laughed. Leng Kang and Qin Yang are not simple. Don't make any trouble. Ma Cheng reminded. Don't worry, they will never come back. Wukan was very confident. He had a plan, but didn't mean to. This time, the 9 major families joined forces. As long as Ma Cheng's information was accurate enough, there would be no mistakes. After this matter is over, we will have nothing to do with each other. Ma Cheng said one more sentence. Okay, you have the final say. Wukan smiled. The next day, the square of the patrol department. Nearly 20 evil killers gathered here. This is quite rare for the patrol department, which is short of manpower. All this was naturally because of the sudden appearance of a medium-sized ghost weapon in Chenghui County. The leader was naturally Leng Kang, the head of the demon-slaying department. This time, he will personally lead the team to Chenghui County. In addition to him, there are more than a dozen old demon-slaying people, all of whom have experienced hundreds of battles and are strong. Qin Yang stood at the end of the team and yawned out of boredom. Leng Kang saw his lazy look and ignored him. After telling him some things, he led everyone on horseback. Chenghui County is not far from Yangtze City, and it takes 6 days to go back and forth. After running for most of the day, when it was dark, they happened to pass by an inn. Let's rest here tonight, Leng Kang said softly. After running for a day, they don't need to rest, and the horses also need to rest. There are only a few soldiers and postmasters guarding the post station. After verifying the identities of Leng Kang and others, they hurriedly arranged rooms. This post station is not big, with only a few houses, and only 7 or 8 people can squeeze into one room. Qin Yang is not used to so many people, so he simply came to the courtyard of the post station alone and practiced cross-legged. The moonlight just happened to fall on him. At this moment, he heard some strange noises. Who? Qin Yang said in a low voice. Very alert. A figure in black robes quietly climbed over the wall and came in. Don't pretend. You can't be the only one. Qin Yang shook his head. Sure enough, the next moment, more than 30 people in black climbed over the wall and directly surrounded the post station. These people in black were holding various weapons and had strong auras. At the worst, they were all real gang warriors, and there were even 7 or 8 grandmaster warriors with 3 flowers gathered at the top of their heads. It seems that you knew we were coming. The black-clothed man who came in first frowned. Of course. I've been waiting for you all night. With a clang, the door of the post station was suddenly pushed open. Leng Kanglan walked out with a tiger step and led a group of evil-killing people. The post station instantly became tense. The black-clothed man looked at Leng Kang without saying a word. Let me guess who you are? Li Changkang? Mo Shan? Or Zheng Yuan Cheo? Leng Kang looked at the man in black with a sarcastic look. Who do you care who I am? How can you, alone, stop so many of us? The man in black sneered. I know that all the elites of the 9 families should be out this time. But I set up a trap to lure you out, so I'm naturally prepared. Leng Kang was not afraid at all. Song Yejun is still in the patrol department. What else do you have? Could it be that you can call someone from Daewoo Imperial City? The man in black snorted coldly. To be able to take action tonight, they must have made all the preparations. There are only so many people in the patrol department, and Song Yejin has not moved in the patrol department. Where else can Leng Kang find help? I can't call people from Daewoo Imperial City, but I can still call people from Yangning Prefecture City. Leng Kang smiled slightly. Manager Leng is right. I, Zhao Dingshan of Xianyang sect, came to help tonight. Only a loud shout was heard. A burly figure suddenly jumped into the post station. This was a red-haired man. His body was like a furnace, raising layers of heat waves. Zhao Dingshan, you are also involved. The man in black frowned. And I. A sharp female voice sounded. With the sound of a sword, a blue figure gracefully fell in. This was a middle-aged woman, wearing a long skirt, with a slightly cold face. The leader of the Lishu sword sect, Shangwen Yun. The man in black recognized the identity of the middle-aged woman at a glance. Haha, it's so lively tonight, I want to join in. A clear voice sounded. The next moment, a figure in a blue Taoist robe flew into the post station like a white crane, and then landed gently. This was an old Taoist with a scruffy beard, holding a wine gourd in his hand. The master of the White Crane Temple, Taoist Fiu. The man in black said word by word. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203 Night. For a moment, with the participation of several sect leaders, the atmosphere became strange. These 3 sect leaders are all masters who have been famous for a long time, and there are also 2 ruthless people, Leng Kang and Qin Yang. Once the fight starts, these people may not be able to please them, so they invited people from the Jianghu sect to come. No wonder Leng Kang is so confident. Qin Yang watched the show from the back, without any nervousness, but he soon remembered something. His eyes fell on Zhao Dingshan, the head of Xianyang sect. He remembered that, when he and Zhao Xinmo were in the ruins of the ancient city, they killed Zhao Fan, the young master of Xianyang sect. But that was handled very cleanly, and Xianyang sect must not have found Qin Yang. Otherwise, Zhao Dingshan might not stand on their side tonight. Qin Yang was afraid that Zhao Dingshan would notice his strange look, so he looked away again. Zhao Dingshan Shangwen Yun. Taoist Fiu, do you really want to get involved? The man in black asked in a deep voice. You 9 families have occupied Yangning City for so long. It's time for a change. Zhao Dingshan sneered. I just like to join in the fun. Taoist Fiu said, picking up the wine gourd and taking another sip of wine. As for Shangwen Yun, her eyes were cold and fierce, as if she was preparing to take action. We don't have to fight to the death. Just surrender and follow me back to the Sky Patrol Division. Leng Kang said indifferently. What if I don't agree? The black-clothed man narrowed his eyes. Don't agree? Then don't even think about leaving. Leng Kang grinned. Just right. I've long disliked these people from the aristocratic families. Zhao Dingshan's face was fierce. Most of the interests of Yangning Prefecture City have always been firmly controlled by the 9 families. The 4 major sects sound equal to the 9 families, but in reality they can only follow behind and drink a sip of soup. Now that there is a chance to overthrow these aristocratic families, Zhao Dingshan naturally doesn't want to let it go. The black-clothed man's eyes flickered. If they really fight, the Sky Patrol Division will naturally suffer heavy casualties. But the elites of the 9 families, I'm afraid none of them can escape. Besides, the 9 families are not so united. If it's a crush, it's okay. Once they enter this critical moment, many people will have small thoughts and think about protecting themselves first. I can't decide. The man in black shook his head. Then let the King of Hell decide for you. Qin Yang jumped up like a tiger. His figure suddenly swept forward. The muscles of his entire right arm were swollen and entangled like a dragon python, and he punched out fiercely. Dragon Elephant. Millions of destroy mountains. Qin Yang's punch even directly activated the unparalleled ferocity. The whole body's strength reached the strongest state. The whistling sound of the fist wind was extremely loud, like the roar of a dragon and an elephant. The man in black's face sank, and he didn't expect Qin Yang to attack suddenly. but he can be the leader tonight. Naturally, it's not an ordinary 3 flowers gathered at the top of the head. His realm is 5 key to the origin. The thick vitality condensed on the black closed body, and he met Qin Yang's heavy punch, and also blasted out a palm. Boom, the air exploded with a roar, splitting mountain palm. It turned out to be Zheng Yuanshi. Taoist Fiu felt the energy of this palm power and sneered. This splitting mountain palm is the unique skill of the Zheng family. There is only one person in the Zheng family who can play such a powerful move. Even the big head constable Zheng Yuanshio can't do it. The splitting mountain palm, its power splits the mountain, violent and fierce. Boom. When the two fists and palms met, one side was the dragon elephant giant force, fierce and unparalleled. The other side was the splitting mountain palm, collapsing the mountain and splitting the earth. They are all fierce moves, using strength to overcome strength. It's just to see who has stronger internal strength and more powerful energy. Zheng Yuanshi thought that Qin Yang would be blown away by his palm. This evil killing man came to Yangning's house city, but he caused a lot of trouble. But his cultivation is only the real gang realm after all. Even if his combat power is strong, he can defeat Mo Yunlian, or 3-flowered warrior with a superficial cultivation. But who is he? Zheng Yuanshi, the head of the Zheng family, who had cultivated for decades to achieve the 5 kiss to origin realm, was not comparable to Mo Yunlian, a fake. But when his fists collided with Qin Yang's, he felt a cold and violent force coming. With a loud bang, Qin Yang retreated 3 steps. Zheng Yuanshi retreated 1 step. It seemed that Zheng Yuanshi had the upper hand, but everyone's eyes widened a little. What kind of cultivation was Zheng Yuanshi? What kind of cultivation was Qin Yang? Being able to push Zheng Yuanshi back 1 step meant that Qin Yang had the power to threaten Zheng Yuanshi. Quite strong. Qin Yang's eyes condensed. This was his first time fighting a warrior in the 5 kiss to origin realm. The opponent's strong vitality did make him feel a great pressure. However, he has always been stronger when facing a strong opponent. He did not look afraid, but drew out the Hanyu knife behind him. Good boy. Zhao Dingshan admired Qin Yang's behavior and laughed. Leng Kang saw Qin Yang take action, and did not waste any more words, and waved his hand. Many evil killers immediately drew their weapons. The 3 sect masters also raised strong auras. In addition, strong auras rose from outside the post station. Obviously, the large forces of the 3 major sects should be surrounded outside. Wait, Leng Kang, we can discuss everything. An untimely voice suddenly sounded. Among the teams of the 9 major families, someone was scared. Damn it. Zheng Yuanshi looked back. Although the person who spoke was masked, he could still tell who the other person was at a glance. The head of the Mo family, Mo Yunfan. That night, Shen Sangxiu was full of worries and couldn't sleep all night. He walked around the Zunshan division alone. He felt that this action seemed a bit hasty. Although everything was under control, he was still uneasy. Soon, he came to a huge tower. This huge tower is the tallest building in the Zunshan division, which can overlook the entire Yangning city. When he looked at the tower, he found that there was also a person standing here. The night breeze was slightly cool, blowing up the man's clothes. Although the man looked like a middle-aged man, his aura gave people a sense of old age. Chief Song, can't you sleep either? Shen Sangxiu was slightly stunned. He didn't expect to meet Song Yeshen here. When people get old, they are prone to insomnia. Song Yeshen smiled and asked, then why did Deputy Chief Shen suffer from insomnia? The worldly affairs are chaotic and there is no peace. Shen Sangxiu sighed slightly. Yes. Fighting every day, I don't know why. Song Yeshen looked at the dark Yangning city and said softly, sometimes I also wonder what the chief is for. Shen Sangxiu asked, do you believe me if I say it's for the common people? Song Yeshen smiled. Yes. Shen Sangxiu had fought with Song Yeshen for several years and knew this opponent very well. These years, I have a hunch that the world should be in chaos soon. Once it is in chaos, many people will die. I want to do something to prevent the unrest from happening. Maybe fewer people will die. Song Yeshen put his hands on the railing and looked into the distance. Just then, Shen Sangxiu heard slight footsteps. He looked back and saw another figure climbing up the watchtower. Chapter 204 Temple. Seeing the person who climbed up the watchtower behind him, Shen Sangxiu was slightly stunned. Deputy Chief Shen. Ma Cheng's one eye flashed with cunning light. Ma Cheng, I didn't expect you to deceive us all. Shen Sangxiu was very surprised. Ma Cheng chuckled and said, Chief Song promised to leave your position to me, and I can't refuse. Shen Sangxiu pondered for a moment. Chief Song, you and Ma Cheng are here. I also sent people to keep an eye on Zhu and Qian. What arrangements have you made for Leng Kang? He didn't expect that Song Yechun could still draw people from there. Those families outside the city want to get a foot in. I'll let them try. Song Yechun smiled. Shen Sangxiu smiled bitterly and shook his head. It seems that I lost this round. He knew that he lost this round miserably. The three stopped talking, just quietly looking into the distance, waiting for the moment of sunrise. One day later, Leng Kang took Zheng Yuanxi and others back. The major families had no choice but to quickly send people to negotiate with Song Yechun to see how to redeem the people. After many rounds of bargaining, the power of the noble families in the patrol department was quickly eliminated. Even Shen Sangxiu, Towning, Wu Qian and other senior members of the patrol department took the initiative to hand in their resignations. Song Yechun did not try to persuade them to stay and readily agreed. The positions they left behind were not left vacant, but were quickly occupied by disciples from the Xianyang sect, Lishu Sword sect and Bei Temple. Ma Cheng was promoted to deputy chief of the department, and Leng Kang was temporarily appointed as the director of the patrol department. The other deputy chief was appointed by Zhao Dingshan, the leader of the Xianyang sect. A few days passed after the personnel changes. Zheng Yuanxi and others were released. Qin Yang was slightly stunned when he heard the news in the Yuxi Hall. We can't fight to the death with the noble families yet. The 9 noble families have 2 deep roots in Yangning City. If they really do something to these people, Yangning Prefecture will immediately be in chaos. Leng Kang said helplessly. Why? Qin Yang was puzzled. It's very simple. For example, 99% of the grain business in Yangning Prefecture is run by the Shen family. If we force the Shen family into a corner and burn the grain, within a few days, Yangning Prefecture city may fall into famine. When the grain is transported from other states, I don't know how many people will die. Besides, the grain transfer may not be smooth sailing. Leng Kang explained. This is only one aspect. In Yangning Prefecture city, there are still many things controlled by the 9 major families, involving many aspects. In the end, the people will suffer. So at this point, Song Yechun can only compromise. Because the goal of clearing the aristocratic families out of the Patrol Heaven division has been achieved. Okay, but this trick of driving away wolves and tigers has worked now. Who knows, in a few years, the wolves will become tigers. Qin Yang said lightly. Without the support of our Patrol Heaven division, it is difficult for the Jianghu sects to compete with the 9 major aristocratic families. At least not in the next few years. Leng Kang said softly. Well, anyway, my contribution value cannot be less. Qin Yang nodded. He was not interested in the changes in the power of the patrol department. He just wanted to earn contribution points. You are indispensable. Just stay calm these days, and don't cause trouble. Contact Liu Yun secretly to see if he has found anything in the questioning heart temple. Leng Kang instructed. Now the patrol department needs some time to adapt. It seems like I'm causing trouble everywhere. I've been in the Yangning patrol department for so long, and it's always people who provoke me, but I've never provoked anyone. Qin Yang said speechlessly. That's the best. Leng Kang smiled helplessly. The questioning heart temple is located in a mountain range more than 10 miles outside Yangning City. This is the largest temple in Yangning Prefecture, and it enshrines a Buddha named Wuxin. It is said that this Buddha is very effective and can guide the world. After this incident was reported, the questioning heart temple became famous and incense was booming. Many pilgrims came to burn incense and worship Buddha, seeking guidance from the Buddha. The sky was slightly bright. In the wing room of the questioning heart temple, a scholar with a sad face was reading some famous books. If Qin Yang were here, he might not be able to recognize that this scholar was the sharp-spirited Liu Yun. However, Liu Yun now had completely lost the sharpness of a sword spirit master and looked more like a down-and-out scholar. Brother Liu, it's our turn to be on duty today. A man's voice came from outside the door. Liu Yun responded, put away the books, and walked out of the room. A man dressed like a scholar stood outside the room. The scholar's name was Jiao Fang, and Liu Yun had been in close contact with him these days. After the two greeted each other, they walked towards the mountain gate of Wengxin Temple. At this moment, there were about 100 people gathered at the mountain gate. Judging from their clothes, they were all down and out people. Wengxin Temple would provide free accommodation and vegetarian meals to the world. Of course, these people were also needed to do some menial work. Many poor scholars who came to Yangning's Hao City to take the exam could not afford the expensive accommodation fees in the city, so coming to Wengxin Temple to stay overnight was the best choice. Liu Yun also used this to sneak into Wengxin Temple. Why has brother Chen He disappeared these past 2 days? Liu Yun took a look and found that another familiar down and out scholar had not appeared for several days. I asked the monk, and he said that brother Chen He went down the mountain to live with his relatives, but he didn't know where he went. Jiao Fang said casually, is that so? Liu Yun's eyes flickered. On this day, Liu Yun led pilgrims to burn incense and worship Buddha in front of the mountain gate of this Wengxin Temple. After dark, he went to the canteen to eat a bowl of vegetarian food and returned to the room. After lighting a candle, there was finally a little light in the dim room. Liu Yun opened the book that he had not finished reading today. It seemed that he was studying hard, but in fact, his mind was thinking about other things. The Buddhist temples in this Wengxin Temple are only for people to burn incense and worship Buddha. The back mountain is the core of Wengxin Temple, but I don't know the situation inside yet, so I dare not get too close. These days, it seems that some people have left one after another, but are these people really leaving, or have they been murdered? Liu Yun's thoughts kept flickering. When he first sneaked into the Wengxin Temple, he just wanted to know how those missing and trafficked people disappeared in the Wengxin Temple. But after he stayed in the Wengxin Temple for a few days, he noticed some very strange and dark things. It seems to be a charitable act, but in fact it is very likely to be a hidden evil. If it is really a conspiracy, I'm afraid that many people have disappeared in the Wengxin Temple in recent years. This temple is really scary. Liu Yun's eyes were slightly cold. If he wanted to destroy the Wengxin Temple, Liu Yun knew that he could not do it alone. He needed to rely on the power of the patrol department. Wait a few days and see if Qin Yang will contact me. Liu Yun withdrew his thoughts and began to pretend to read a book again. This wing room seemed quiet and remote, but in fact there were people watching day and night. He could not reveal any flaws, so he could only make his behavior more like a down and out scholar. Chapter 205 Visit. A few days later, a dark-skinned man in black clothes quietly left Yangning Prefecture. Following the official road, after more than 10 miles, the flow of people became more and more. Most of them were believers who went to Wengxin Temple to burn incense and worship Buddha, holding incense, candles and some offerings in their hands. The dark-skinned man followed the flow of people, climbed the stone steps, and soon arrived in front of the mountain gate of Wengxin Temple. Many fortune-telling and feng shui stalls were set up not far from the mountain gate, which was extremely lively. The temple also sent people to guard the mountain gate, to guide the flow of people. The dark-skinned man was very tall, and he still had a wide field of vision even in the crowded crowd. It seemed that he came to Wengxin Temple for the first time, and was not very familiar with the situation here, so he found a scholar who had been guiding the flow of people to ask, "Excuse me, how do I get to the Buddha Hall?" The dark-skinned man asked softly. When the scholar saw the dark-skinned man, he was stunned at first, and then smiled. "Why don't I take you there?" "Thank you, brother." The dark-skinned man was very grateful, and clasped his fists in even numbers. Immediately, the scholar took Qin Yang into the Temple of Questioning the Heart. This kind of thing is very common in the Temple of Questioning the Heart, and no one thought it was unusual. Along the way, the two talked and laughed, but quietly avoided the crowded crowd. "Liu Yun, I almost didn't recognize you. You guy, you look quite like a scholar." The dark man whispered. "I was born in a scholarly family and later became a spiritual master, so I didn't pursue a career in politics." Liu Yun said softly. "It's better to hold a sword than a pen. With your temper, if you pursue a career in politics, I'm afraid you would kill the government officials on the first day of your appointment." Qin Yang smiled. Don't blame me, I almost didn't recognize you either. Not only is the disguise skill superb, but this aura is hidden too deep, I can't sense it at all. Liu Yan sighed. Qin Yang has the beaming black water true skill, just like a black tortoise hidden in the deep sea, and his aura will not leak out at all. Even a warrior with the 5 kiss in the UN standing in front of Qin Yang would only think that he was an ordinary person. I learned it from others. What have you gained in the past few days? Qin Yang asked casually. The two did not go to the main hall, but walked to a more remote corner where there were relatively fewer people. I found out these days. Liu Yan's voice came into Qin Yang's ears, but Liu Yan's mouth did not move. This is a secret art of sound transmission. It transmits sound into Qin Yang's mind in a special way. When Qin Yang finished listening, his eyes flashed slightly, and when he was about to speak, Liu Yan gave him a look. Try to use the secret art of sound transmission here. Liu Yan quietly handed him a note. Qin Yang opened it and saw that it was a secret art of sound transmission through the air. This secret art is not complicated. With Qin Yang's comprehension, he quickly understood it. After trying it a few times, he could communicate with Liu Yan using the secret art of sound transmission through the air. According to what you said, this Wengxin temple is not a Buddhist temple at all. It is simply a demon cave that eats people. Qin Yang said in a voice transmission. I'll try to find a chance these days to see if I can get in touch with the monks in the back mountain of Wengxin temple. Liu Yan responded. Be careful. The abbot of Wengxin temple, Master Kungxin, is a master of 5 kiss. If you get caught, your life will be in danger. Qin Yang reminded. Don't worry. I'm not that stupid. Liu Yan shook his head. The two chatted about many details afterwards. Of course, everything was communicated by voice transmission. On the surface, they were just wandering around Wengxin temple. Then Qin Yang pretended to go to the Buddhist temple to burn a few incense sticks before leaving Wengxin temple. He returned to the Xiangxin division and told Leng Kang about his contact with Liu Yan in detail. I didn't expect that even Wengxin temple itself would do such a thing. Leng Kang shook his head slightly after listening to Qin Yang's report. Liu Yan is now lurking in Wengxin temple and will not be exposed for the time being. But it's hard to say if he is targeted. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. Don't worry, we will do something secretly so that Wengxin temple will have no time to do these things. Leng Kang said seriously. It was rare that Liu Yan was able to sneak into the temple of questioning the heart without being discovered, so he naturally could not be exposed. In the days that followed, Yangning Prefecture City returned to peace. In fact, in the eyes of ordinary people, Yangning Prefecture City has always been so peaceful. Because the Zunshan division is too far away from ordinary people, even if there are drastic changes in the Zunshan division, ordinary people have no way to know. In the eyes of ordinary people, the 9 major families in Fuheihao Mansion are still standing in Yangning Prefecture City, controlling all walks of life. Only a small number of people know that the 9 major families were driven out of the Zunshan division. It seems that the 9 major families have not suffered much loss, but have lost some power. But everyone with a discerning eye knows that Yangning Prefecture City has changed. The era when the 9 major families in Fuheihao Mansion controlled Yangning Prefecture City has passed. The Zunshan division and the 3 major sects have become the 3rd largest force that can fight against the 9 major families in Fuheihao Mansion. Today's Yangning City is a battle between the 3 major forces. However, after clearing out the power of the aristocratic families, the Zunshan division did not make much movement afterwards, and it still operated as usual. And the 9 major families seemed to have admitted defeat, and did not make any movement. Many people thought that the confrontation would escalate further, but it did not happen. This certainly disappointed some ambitious people. During this period, Qin Yang practiced in the patrol department without sleep and food, and did not step out of the secret room. Because Qin Yang knew that, although Yangning's Hao City seemed calm now, it was actually dangerous and unpredictable. The patrol department would soon go to war with Fuheihao Mansion. If he wanted to gain greater benefits in this war, he had to improve his strength. He is currently in the real gang realm. The next step is the 3 flowers gathering at the top, entering the realm of Grandmaster Warriors. After the evil dragon swallowing evil knife was perfected, Qin Yang focused on the beaming black water true skill. He exchanged a large number of Yunshu pills and practiced day and night, and his proficiency in the Qin Yang Life and Death Talisman Sutra was also rising wildly. The bright moon was hanging high, casting silver light on the official road. A caravan of dozens of people was slowly moving forward on the official road. The caravan had more than a dozen carriages, and the carriages were sealed, so it was impossible to see inside. The guards also looked fierce. This caravan was called Wanfu. It set out from Changchun County, and after several months, it finally arrived near Yangning Prefecture. However, at a fork in the road, the leader of the caravan did not turn to Yangning City, but headed in another direction. This direction happened to be the direction to Wengxin Temple. Many guards had long been accustomed to it, and did not pay much attention to it. At this moment, a faint sword chant sounded. This sword chant was very strange, like the sound of flowing water. Many guards of the caravan seemed not to hear the sword chant. Only the leader of the caravan heard it. When he turned around, heads flew up. All the guards of the caravan were stunned and at a loss. A masked figure holding a blue sword quietly appeared. Her eyes were cold, and she instantly killed these caravan guards. In a short while, the official road was full of corpses. Chapter 206. Great Success. Wengxin Temple, a Zen temple on the back mountain. Although it was late at night, some Zen temples could still be seen with candles lit, and occasionally the sound of chanting could be heard. Knock 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 in a Zen room. An old monk with long eyebrows hanging down on his chest was knocking on a wooden fish, his eyes slightly closed, as if he was half asleep. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps disrupted the gentle sound of the wooden fish. A long-faced monk in yellow clothes ran into the Zen room. Abbot, the Wanfu caravan was attacked. All our people died. The long-faced monk said anxiously. Those blood foods. Were they rescued again? The old monk frowned slightly. He was the abbot of Wengxin Temple, Monk Kungsin. Well, it has happened 3 times this month. The bodies were all killed by sharp swords. Judging from the traces and methods, they look very much like Liu Yun. It's all because of those trash in the Blackfish Tower. They can't even handle the Heavenly Soul Spirit Master. The long-faced monk had a gloomy face. Monk Kungsin thought for a moment. Liu Yun is against us in every way. We should deal with him as soon as possible. Otherwise he will ruin our plans sooner or later. Tomorrow you will contact the Blackfish Tower again and ask them to provide clues and information. We will kill him. Monk Longface said in a deep voice. Disciple obeys your order. Remember, Liu Yun can't stay any longer. Kungsin's old eyes showed a cold light. If Liu Yun doesn't die, then you can't stay. Monk Longface was so scared that his legs trembled immediately. But he didn't dare to refuse Monk Kungsin, so he could only grit his teeth and say, don't worry, Abbot, I will definitely take Liu Yun down. Well, go ahead. Monk Kungsin waved his hand. After Monk Longface left, Monk Kungsin continued to knock on the wooden fish and recite scriptures. The world is a sea of suffering, and hell is terrifying. Climb to the other shore. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. Qin Yang sat cross-legged in the secret room of cultivation, with a gloomy blue airflow wrapped around his body. These airflows were running wildly, vaguely forming a strange beast with a dragon head, a snake tail and a turtle body. As the beaming black water true art gradually reached its peak, Qin Yang's spirit and energy gradually changed, and the energy formed was no longer that of an evil dragon, but that of a black tortoise beast. Extremely deep and cold air continued to radiate from him. The speed of the true energy in his body was like a whirlpool, turbulent and fierce. After more than 10 breaths, a loud noise broke out in Qin Yang's body. It was as if the waves hit the beach fiercely. The blood and true energy started to circulate wildly, forming a perfect cycle in Qin Yang's body. Qin Yang opened his eyes. Host, Qin Yang beaming black water true art. Perfect. Suppressing evil. Yin Yang Life and Death Talisman Sutra. 7th level. Yin Talisman. 500 over 1200 Yang Talisman. 535 over 1200. Dragon Elephant Fist. Perfect. Unparalleled in strength. Evil Dragon Swallowing Evil Blade. Great Success. 675 over 2000. Turtle Snake Art. Perfect. Extreme Cold. After 2 months of hard practice, I have finally cultivated the black water true art to perfection. Qin Yang said to himself. He looked at the magical power formed by the beaming black water true art with a curious look. Suppressing evil. What kind of magical power is this? Suppressing evil. Xuanwu's death, fierce and deep, can restrain all twisted evil things. This is the information Qin Yang sensed from the system panel. This should be similar to the Piofeng magical power. Piofeng magical power can make the blade sharper, and the suppressing evil magical power makes all my moves have a restraining effect on evil, causing greater damage. Qin Yang quickly understood the meaning of the suppressing evil magical power. Evil? I don't know if ghost weapons can also be restrained by my suppressing evil magical power. Qin Yang cares more about this, because according to Zhao Zinmo's words, if the forbidden art of isolating the world really gradually loses its effect, the malice from the void will increase. This means that ghost weapons will appear more and more frequently, and even ghost species may appear again. However, this can only be verified by finding some tasks to suppress ghost weapons in the future. However, Qin Yang can still feel that the beaming black water true art in his body has undergone some transformation and has a little more characteristics. Qin Yang guessed that this trait should be the magical power of suppressing evil. Qin Yang walked out of the training room after getting used to the power after the breakthrough. This time he came out and went to Linxin Tower first, because he had practiced the beaming black water sutra to perfection. In order to break through to the three flowers gathering at the top, he still needed a Tongsuan technique. Martial arts books are divided into third rate, second rate, and first rate. In fact, there are more powerful and more profound martial arts above the first rate, and this kind of martial arts is called Tongsuan martial arts. It cost 1,000 contribution points to exchange for the beaming black water sutra before. I wonder how much this Tongsuan technique will cost again, Qin Yang said to himself. This Tongsuan technique is very particular. Because the three flowers gather at the top, the 5 ki converge to the origin. It is not just the cultivation of ki in blood. It is about the high concentration of the whole person's spirit. All the way to the technique area of Linxin Tower. The Yangning Patrol Department naturally has a much larger collection of books than the Shan Patrol Department. All kinds of strange martial arts techniques can be found. Qin Yang even saw a few books on poisonous skills, or skills similar to the Sunflower Manual. In short, there is everything you need. After all, the Sky Patrol has been established for many years, and has been collecting martial arts from all over the world. The Tongsuan skills are regarded as treasures in the outside world. In the Linxin building, there is a full bookshelf. No wonder the family must insert their own people. Just the martial arts here are mouth-watering. Qin Yang sighed slightly. But after sighing, martial arts still need to be selected. In the past 2 months of seclusion, in addition to his hard work day after day, he also consumed too many elixirs to quickly improve the beaming black water true skill to perfection. As a result, Qin Yang's contribution value is now completely cleared. None at all. Today, I came here just to determine the skills, and then use it to exchange for contribution points. But after a round of selection, Qin Yang still didn't find the Tongsuan skills that suit him. Either it doesn't match his attributes, or the power of the skills is a bit unsatisfactory. You know, the beaming black water true art that Qin Yang practiced is a forbidden art, and its power is stronger than that of first class art. He took a quick look at these water attributed Tongsuan arts, and felt that their power was stronger than beaming black water true art, but not much stronger. This was not acceptable in his mind. He had only one principle, that is, the power of the art must be strong enough. As for the difficulty of practice, and some special requirements, they were not important to him. No matter how difficult it was to practice, as long as he practiced it once, he could use the proficiency panel to improve it, and it would not be difficult for him at all. No, my beaming black water true art is a forbidden art. There should be some forbidden arts in this Tongsuan art. Qin Yang suddenly thought of this. He left the bookshelf of Tongsuan art and looked for forbidden arts. This area of martial arts secrets is very large. Qin Yang searched for a long time before finally finding the bookshelf of forbidden arts in the corner. Compared with the bookshelf where Tongsuan art is placed, this place seems very sparse, with only about 1/5 of it placed. Chapter 207 Fragments. In this bookshelf, Qin Yang even saw the beaming black water scripture. After all, the secret manual of the skills can be copied and reproduced, so it is not surprising to see it. But Qin Yang also saw a fragment next to the beaming black water scripture. This fragment is very thin, and like the beaming black water scripture, the surface is covered with black. Qin Yang picked it up and took a look. Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong. 6 dark and deep characters that looked like a tortoise and a snake came into view. Bidao Zen Wu. Could it be the subsequent skills of beaming black water scripture? Qin Yang's eyes lit up. When he opened the first page, he found a note inside. Note, Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong is a fragment, only the 3 flowers gathering at the top, the 5 keys converging to the origin and the Tangsuan chapter are missing. Please choose carefully. When Qin Yang finished reading the note, his eyes moved slightly. No wonder this Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong is so thin, only 1/3 of it was originally left. He opened it to check the contents behind. Generally speaking, these martial arts secrets will be displayed in the first few pages. After Qin Yang finished reading, he knew that he had to practice the Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong. It was completely an advanced method of beaming Lishu Zen Gong. Even if it was incomplete, Qin Yang planned to continue practicing it first and find subsequent methods later. He looked at the contribution points required to exchange for the Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong. It actually required 1,500 contribution points. This is still 1/3 of the incomplete version. If it is a complete method, wouldn't it be 5,000 contribution points? Qin Yang shook his head slightly. He had just seen those Tangsuan methods, and the contribution points required were also around 4,000 to 5,000. Let's find a few tasks to complete first. Qin Yang put down the Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong and turned to leave. 1,500 contribution points were not difficult for him. It would take a little time to get them all. Walking in the Zunshan division, Qin Yang found that most of the faces had become unfamiliar. The disciples of the 3 major sects, Qianyang sect, Lishu sword sect and Bei temple, joined, which was also regarded as injecting new blood into the Zunshan division. Song Yechen also changed the previous rules and allowed the disciples of the 3 major sects to join the Zhuxi department to supplement the strength. In addition, branches of the patrol department were established in various counties before. Even if the aristocratic forces withdrew from the patrol department, the manpower problem was greatly alleviated. Song Yechen's careful planning for several years was not in vain. Along the way, Qin Yang could sense that many eyes were on him. He is no longer an unknown person, and even has a nickname. The Evil Sea Dragon. It is mainly because he acts domineeringly, and is as ferocious as a dragon, so he has such a nickname. Qin Yang did not care, but thought that this nickname sounded good. Came to the Zhuxi hall. Len Kang saw him come in, was slightly stunned, and took him directly to the tea room. You kid finally came out of retreat. Len Kang smiled. Is there something big happening? Qin Yang knew that this time node was very sensitive and anything could happen. Not yet, but it will be soon. We are going to take action against the Temple of Inquiry. So you came out just in time. Len Kang said in a deep voice. Qin Yang's face condensed, and he asked seriously, how many contribution points? Len Kang originally thought that Qin Yang would ask why he attacked the Wengxin temple. Unexpectedly, he would start with contribution points. I'll give you 1,000 contribution points. Len Kang said helplessly. Too little. I'm short of contribution points now. At least 2,000. I'll help you kill a few more monks from Wengxin temple. Qin Yang asked for a big price. 2,000? I can't get that much myself. At most 1,500. Len Kang bargained. Qin Yang was waiting for this sentence. 5,000 deal. Len Kang originally thought that Qin Yang would bargain again, but when he heard that he agreed so readily, he was slightly stunned. You are plotting against me. Qin Yang smiled slightly. How can I call it plotting? It's all for the Sky Patrol Division. Len Kang didn't bother with Qin Yang and said in a deep voice, during the 2 months of your retreat, the power of the Sky Patrol Division has basically been integrated and adjusted. The head of the division plans to attack the heart-questioning temple first. Qin Yang asked softly, then what are you going to do? These days, I have been sending people to imitate Liu Yun's methods and constantly attack caravans related to the heart-questioning temple. During this process, I captured a few people and basically knew the situation of the heart-questioning temple. The heart-questioning temple has indeed been constantly robbing people in recent years, but no one knows what they are doing specifically. So we can only find an opportunity to directly attack the temple in the back mountain of the heart questioning temple. That is the core of the heart questioning temple, Len Kang said in a deep voice. Well, I'm good at assault. Qin Yang grinned. You don't need to rush to the front. I hope you can also sneak into the heart questioning temple and then join hands with Liu Yun to cooperate with us from inside and outside, Len Kang explained. This task can only be completed by Qin Yang. This is also the reason why he was relieved when he saw Qin Yang come out of retreat. The first is naturally because of Qin Yang's strength. Then, Liu Yun only trusts Qin Yang. Under these two factors, only Qin Yang meets this condition. So dangerous? It seems that my contribution value of 1,500 is too little. Qin Yang muttered. This is deep into the heart of the questioning heart temple. Liu Yun has been lurking for so long, and nothing happened. Len Kang shook his head. It is well known that Liu Yun is a spiritual master. Don't talk to spiritual masters. Qin Yang sneered. Okay, this time it depends on your performance. If you perform well, you can add more contribution points, Len Kang said helplessly. That's right. Qin Yang smiled. Then he discussed the details with Len Kang. These cannot be sloppy, as they are related to whether the assault on the questioning heart temple will be successful. After talking for a long time, Qin Yang left the sky patrol and returned to his courtyard. First, disguise yourself. Since you are going to sneak into the questioning heart temple this time, you will definitely not be able to bring the Hanyuan sword, so you can only ask Len Kang to ask someone to bring it over when the time comes. Instead of wearing a tight suit, he changed into a linen shirt and straw sandals that only poor people would wear. He also had to make his skin look dark. He looked like a tall porter. After he told Len Kang some things, he quietly left the patrol department. The patrol department now was not like before, full of spies. After the changes in the past 2 months, the area around the patrol department had long been cleared, and the scouts of the aristocratic families did not dare to approach. He left Yangning's house city and quickly arrived at the Temple of Questioning the Heart. It was already afternoon. The flow of people in the Temple of Questioning the Heart was still as lively as before, and there was an endless stream of people. Qin Yang climbed the stone steps and followed the flow of people to the mountain gate of the Temple of Questioning the Heart again. With a glance, he found Liu Yun in the crowd. As if he noticed Qin Yang's gaze, Liu Yun turned around and looked. Why are you here? Liu Yun secretly transmitted a message. Is there any way to get me into the Temple of Questioning the Heart? Qin Yang also transmitted a message to Liu Yun. Okay. Liu Yun agreed without asking the reason. Chapter 208 Hungry. After that, the two of them quickly discussed the words, and Liu Yun took Qin Yang into the side room of Wengxin Temple and found a monk. The monk's name was Hutong, and he was responsible for managing Liu Yun and his people on weekdays. Master Hutong, this is my fellow villager, Qin Sangling. He has been working as a porter, but the world has been difficult these days, and he hasn't had a job for a long time. Can he stay in the temple for a few days? Liu Yun said sincerely. The monk Hutong looked over. Qin Yang's expression was awkward, and when he saw the monk Hutong's eyes, he quickly showed a flattering smile. He was the image of an honest man. Okay. Buddhism is compassionate. Everyone has difficulties. You can stay as long as you want. But the Buddhist precepts are strict. You must have explained the rules to him clearly. Monk Hutong asked. Master, don't worry, I have already told him. Liu Yun nodded. Then live next door to you. There happens to be an empty room. Monk Hutong said casually. Thank you, master. Qin Yang hurriedly put his hands together to express his gratitude. No need. The Buddha saves all living beings, and these are what should be done. Monk Hutong waved his hand. After leaving Monk Hutong, Liu Yun took Qin Yang to the room. He seemed to help clean up, but he was secretly communicating with Qin Yang through voice transmission. Is the patrol of the sky going to attack the Temple of Questioning the Heart? Liu Yun was a little excited. He had been lurking in the Temple of Questioning the Heart for so long, and finally waited for this moment. He wanted to swing his sword, to destroy this man-eating devil's cave. That's right. That's why I came to you. How do you think we should start? Qin Yang asked through voice transmission. Because Liu Yun had been dormant here for more than 2 months, He knew the situation of the Temple of Questioning the Heart better than anyone else. The core of the Temple of Questioning the Heart is in the back mountain. There are only a few monks in the real gang realm in the front yard, so there is no threat. Liu Yun had already figured out the details of the front yard. Don't you know the situation in the back mountain? Qin Yang continued to ask. The security there is too strict. It is impossible for non-monks from the Temple of Questioning Heart to get close. I also tried to sneak in, but I was almost discovered before I even entered the back mountain. Liu Yun said helplessly. He tried every way in the past 2 months, but he was powerless. It's okay. If you can't sneak in, then kill it. Qin Yang smiled. Well, if you want to attack by force, maybe we will have a chance. Liu Yun said seriously. What's your plan? Qin Yang's eyes lit up. Make a feint to the east and attack in the west. You go to the Sky Patrol Department first. Liu Yun told his plan. This plan is good. Wait until tomorrow, and the people from the Sky Patrol Department will contact me. I will pass the plan on. If Leng Kang thinks it is feasible, it will probably be done tomorrow night. Qin Yang responded. I can't help it. Liu Yun said coldly. The two stopped communicating. After cleaning the room, Liu Yun took Qin Yang to walk in the Temple of Questioning Heart, as if he wanted him to get familiar with the situation of the Temple of Questioning Heart as soon as possible. Along the way, monks occasionally came to ask questions, and Liu Yun answered truthfully. These monks are just outer disciples of Wengxin Temple, and they don't have any cultivation. Liu Yun secretly transmitted the message while taking Qin Yang to the canteen. Recently, those of you who are staying at Wengxin Temple, there shouldn't be anyone missing, right? Qin Yang thought of this. A lot less. They seem to be busy with something else. Liu Yun replied. He was also surprised by this. According to the information he collected, generally, if you live here for more than a month, you will disappear without a sound. But he has lived here for more than 2 months, and no one has attacked him. Well, because recently, Leng Kang sent people to imitate your methods, and constantly intercepted and killed the caravans that sent people to Wengxin Temple. I guess everyone is busy investigating your whereabouts. But how could these monks in Wengxin Temple think that you were in Wengxin Temple? Qin Yang smiled. No wonder. Liu Yun suddenly realized. After that, the two came to the canteen, ate vegetarian food, and returned to the wing room. There was no conversation that night. The next day, a pilgrim quietly found Qin Yang, who was guiding the flow of people in Wengxin Temple. Why did you come in person? Qin Yang was also a little dumbfounded when he looked at the man in front of him. He was hunched over, with white hair and a cane. He seemed to be an old man in his twilight years. But Qin Yang recognized him at a glance. This old man was Leng Kang, the director of the Evil Punishment Department of Yangning's Unshan Division. Qin Yang quickly reacted and pretended to support the old man. This is a serious matter. It's better for me to come and contact you myself. How is it? What did Liu Yun say to you? Leng Kang secretly sent a message to Qin Yang. He provided a plan. I think it's okay. It depends on your opinion. Qin Yang told him the attack plan he and Liu Yun had made last night. After listening to it, Leng Kang pondered for a while. Of course I have no problem. Are you confident? The most important thing about this plan is the actions of Qin Yang and Liu Yun. Of course. But remember to give me some contribution points. Qin Yang was full of confidence. No problem. Leng Kang nodded. Then I will wait for your signal tonight and start to act. Qin Yang said. Well, it will probably happen at chow time. You should prepare in secret. Leng Kang gave a specific time. The two had been communicating secretly. Qin Yang pretended to help Leng Kang go to the Buddhist temple of Wengxin Temple to worship. After Leng Kang left, Qin Yang did not make any unusual movements. He stayed at the mountain gate to guide the flow of people and pick up pilgrims. After eating vegetarian food, he returned to his room. During this time, he also told Liu Yun the time of action tonight. Late at night. Back Mountain Zen Temple. Knock knock knock. The monk Kungsin was accompanied by the green lamp and the ancient Buddha, and gently knocked the wooden fish. The long-faced monk with a panicked expression walked into the Zen temple. Abbot. The long-faced monk spoke with difficulty. Haven't you found Liu Yun yet? The monk Kungsin asked softly while knocking the wooden fish. Not yet. I don't know what the Black Feather Tower is doing. They can't even find a Liu Yun. The long-faced monk kept explaining. Well, the Blackfish Tower has experienced several attacks from the patrol department, and now it seems to be completely useless. Qin monk nodded gently. Abbot, don't worry, I will increase my efforts, and will definitely catch Liu Yun. The long-faced monk promised. Well, Qin monk did not look angry, but just stopped knocking the wooden fish and said lightly, the old monk is hungry. Disciple will bring some vegetarian food. The long-faced monk said hurriedly, I'm hungry. Qin monk muttered to himself, looking at the long-faced monk with turbid old eyes and repeated. The long-faced monk was flustered, and his scalp was numb. Abbot, give me another chance. I'm hungry. Qin monk repeated again. Give it again. Ah. A scream came from the Zen room, and then it stopped abruptly. Chapter 209 Night Attack. Late at night, the moon was high in the sky. Wengxin Temple. Crunch, crunch. A sound that was out of tune with the tranquility of Buddhism sounded in the Zen temple on the back mountain. This sound was very much like the chewing sound of some large carnivorous animal eating after catching prey. After a while, the chewing sound disappeared. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of wooden fish sounded again. At the foot of the mountain, dozens of figures gathered quietly. They all wore swords on their waists and were dressed in black. In order to completely take down Wengxin Temple tonight, in addition to the masters of the Xuexi department, 5 or 6 spiritual masters of the Zuanling department were called over. One of them happened to be Zhao Xinmo. No one spoke, and they were all adjusting their breath and mentality. This Wengxin Temple is not easy to mess with. It will definitely be a fierce fight. Action. Lenkang shouted coldly. He had already explained the specific actions when he was in the patrol department. He led everyone to rush towards Wengxin Temple on the mountain. They were so fast that they rushed into the mountain gate of Wengxin Temple in the blink of an eye. Lenkang led his men to climb over the wall and enter the Wengxin Temple, rushing to the wing room behind the Buddha Hall. There were not many masters in the front yard, only a few monks in the Zen Gang realm. Liu Yun had been in Wengxin Temple these days and had already figured out the residences of these monks. There were only 2 patrol teams from the Washu Monk Academy in the front yard of Wengxin Temple. As long as they could find the gaps of the other side, they would not be discovered at all. Lenkang made a gesture. This meant to act separately. The evil killers and spiritual masters immediately divided into 4 teams and headed towards their respective targets. Lenkang led a few people and rushed to a Zen temple. His target was a monk named Huiding. According to the clues provided by Liu Yun, this monk was usually responsible for various affairs in the front yard. His cultivation was also good, and he had reached the peak of Zen Gang. When Lenkang sneaked into the Zen temple and was about to rush into the room, boom, the door suddenly exploded. A thin and old arm covered with age spots suddenly hit out of the room. The palm was like a dry claw, grabbing Lenkang's chest fiercely. Bang! It was like hitting a steel plate, but the withered claw was shaking from the recoil. Lenkang had also mastered a terrifying hard kicking, so the claw could not hurt him at all, and he immediately punched out. Bang! It hit a yellow-robed old monk hard. The old monk smashed the wall hard, but a long howl came out of his mouth. Enemy attack. This long howl instantly broke the tranquility of Wengxin Temple. Not only the front yard, but also the back mountain could hear it. Damn it. Lenkang's face changed, and he sped up and rushed towards the old monk Huding. The old monk Huding stood up with a ferocious face, and his claws quickly swept out. Bang bang bang! The 2 sides quickly fought. The fist wind whistled and shook in the room. But because the gap was too obvious, especially the strength, the old monk Huding was finally unable to withstand Lenkang's fist. After more than 10 moves, Lenkang punched him in the head. But Lenkang's face did not show any happy expression, which was extremely ugly. He did not expect to be discovered before he even approached the back mountain. Forget it. Anyway, we have to fight in the end. Lenkang shook his head. He had heard a lot of noises coming from outside. It was obvious that the monks in the front yard were alarmed and were rushing over quickly. Back mountain Zen temple. The old monk Kungsin heard Huding's long howl and frowned slightly. He thought about it and stood up and walked out of the Zen temple. In front of the Zen temple, several old monks were already waiting. What's the situation? The old monk Kungsin asked. Abbot, there should be an invasion by foreign enemies. As for the identity of the enemy, it has not been determined yet, an old monk said in a deep voice. The old monk Kungsin suddenly looked at the front yard. There, he felt a strong aura. 5 kiss converged to the origin. The old monk Kungsin muttered to himself. There are not many masters like this even in Yangning's house city. In the Wengxin temple, he is the only one who can compete. Ask Huri, Huayu, Huxing and Huchin to stay in the back mountain. The rest of you, follow me to the front yard. Kungsin old monk quickly ordered. His decision was quite cautious. He deliberately left 4 old monks with 3 flowers gathered on their heads to stay in the back mountain to ensure that nothing could go wrong. Immediately, 4 old monks put their hands together and said, "We will follow the abbot's orders." Kungsin old monk then led the elders and elite disciples of Wengxin temple to the front yard for support. The front yard was now in a sea of shouts and killings. After knowing that the matter was exposed, several teams of the patrol department no longer had any intention of hiding, and simply killed people blatantly. The disciples of Wengxin temple in the front yard were no match for these evil killers and spiritual masters. They were killed and defeated. Even some Buddhist temples began to burn with flames. For the evil killers who fight evil spirits all day long, they are naturally not as afraid of ghosts and gods as ordinary people, and they can be said to be unscrupulous. When Lenkang led his men to rush to the back mountain, Amitabha, how can you enter the pure land of Buddhism? An old man shouted. Immediately, an old figure came like lightning and hit Lenkang like lightning. This palm power was extremely strong and powerful. Lenkang could only think of one person who could have such palm power in Wengxin temple. The monk Kungsin. Come on. Lenkang laughed loudly, and his pair of iron fists shook the earth and hit him domineeringly. Boom. The 2 warriors, who were also in the 5-kiss Chaoyuan realm, met and didn't even say a word, and they just fought. The area of dozens of meters became a forbidden area. The palm wind and fist power continued to explode and disperse, forming violent wind and waves. The many old monks and elite disciples who followed the monk Kungsin also dispersed and fought with the people of the patrol department. Boom. A loud sound like thunder. There were also screams. These noises had already awakened the people who were staying in the temple. Someone attacked Wengxin temple in the middle of the night. Could it be bandits? How is it possible? The bandits within 100 miles of Yangning prefecture have been cleared out long ago. Who attacked? You're talking so much, just hide. Yes, hide first. The pilgrims who were staying in the temple were panicked, quickly packed their luggage, and kept running out of the room. The entire area of the wing room soon became a mess, with all kinds of panic shouting. 2 figures took advantage of the chaos and the messy crowd to head towards the back mountain Zen temple of Wengxin temple. Since the entire front yard of Wengxin temple was in chaos, no one noticed these 2 people. Liu Yun, can you do it without a sword? Qin Yang asked softly on the way. Even if he didn't bring the Hanyu knife, he had a pair of iron fists, and he was not afraid of anyone. But Liu Yun's cultivation was all in the magic sword. If he didn't have a sword, the battle would be reduced by at least 50%. Who said I didn't bring a sword? Liu Yun shook his head. He opened his throat and reached in. He actually pulled out a small green wooden sword from his mouth. This works? Qin Yang was stunned. Of course it works. Let's go. While the monk is trapped, let's charge into this man-eating devil's cave. Liu Yun's eyes were cold. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210 Prison Heart. Liu Yun had already figured out the way to the back mountain. He led Qin Yang through the Wengxin temple quickly and soon passed through the front yard and entered the back mountain. The atmosphere here was completely different from the front yard. There were dark and angry Ahut statues standing one after another. These statues were of different shapes, but they all had fierce eyes, which gave people a lot of pressure. I once heard 2 monks talking about a temple in the back mountain, called Yuxin Temple. This Buddhist temple is very mysterious, and even the monks of Wengxin temple find it difficult to get close. There should be a big problem there. Liu Yun sent a voice message to Qin Yang. Then let's go and take a look. Qin Yang nodded. The two entered a dark square, and there were dark Buddhist temples everywhere, which looked solemn and gloomy. Liu Yun had never been to the back mountain before, and frowned to find the Yuxin temple. "Who is it?" A loud shout came suddenly. I saw several burly monks jumping out of a Buddhist temple, looking at Qin Yang and Liu Yun, and shouting, "Masters, we are travelers staying in the temple. There was a commotion in the temple just now, and we ran here without knowing it." Qin Yang explained hurriedly. "I see." The leading monk saw the clothes of Qin Yang and Liu Yun and nodded slightly. "But this is a forbidden place for Buddhism. Intruders, die." The leading monk showed murderous intent on his face, and appeared in front of Qin Yang in a flash, and slapped his head with his big hand. Whoosh! The palm power was so fierce that it squeezed out violent wind pressure. If it were an ordinary person, I'm afraid his head would be blown up by a palm. The next moment, Qin Yang smiled, and before the opponent's big hand fell, he raised his right elbow and smashed it hard. Bang! It hit the chest of the burly monk. Boom. It was like a sharp hammer hitting hard. The chest of the burly monk was brutally smashed open by Qin Yang's elbow. The violent force also shattered the opponent's internal organs. "Ah!" The burly monk screamed, and his body was knocked to the ground by an elbow, smashing the floor. "It seems that you died first." Qin Yang smiled slightly. The burly monk's body twitched, and he kept spitting blood, as if he wanted to say something. Bang! The next moment, his head was crushed by Qin Yang's foot. Clang! At the same time, Liu Yun shook his sleeves, and a small greenwood sword slipped into his hand. With a sword sound, the small greenwood sword instantly flew out of his hand, and turned into several green lights. Puff! The remaining monks were pierced by the sharp sword light, before they could react. Such sword intent. "You are Liu Yun." An angry shout came. I saw an old monk suddenly rushing out of the Buddhist temple. His beard and hair were furious, and he was extremely angry. "It's your grandfather Liu Yun." Liu Yun snorted coldly, pinched his sword fingers with both hands, and the green lights instantly merged together, and the sword light suddenly surged, and shot towards the old monk. The old monk was only at the level of true gang, and he was no match for such a fierce sword controlling technique. After a few rounds, he screamed and his head was cut off. There is an invasion by foreign enemies. It's Liu Yun. Kill. At this time, dozens of monks rushed out from various Buddhist temples. They all held swords in their hands, and they were ferocious and murderous. Kill. Qin Yang also whispered and rushed forward. His muscles suddenly bulged, and his arms suddenly swelled. He rushed into the crowd like a dragon and elephant and wreaked havoc. Bang bang bang! A pair of iron fists swung wildly like an elephant's trunk, forming a violent wind pressure, and knocked the burly monks away one by one. His power was too huge. Even the monks who specialized in tempering their ki and blood seemed as fragile as children in front of Qin Yang. Liu Yun also urged the green wooden sword, slashing out a sharp sword light, piercing the bodies of the monks one by one. He rushed all the way, leaving corpses all over the ground. The whole temple in the back mountain began to float with the smell of blood. After a cup of tea, the two finally saw a dark Buddhist temple. This Buddhist temple was unusually grand, and the interior was gloomy and dark, and unusually depressing. The plaque in front of the hall read the three words Yuxin Hall. "This is it." Liu Yun whispered. "Kill him." Qin Yang casually blew up the head of the last monk and said lightly. Behind them seemed to have turned into a road to hell, with countless corpses everywhere. The two rushed into the Yuxin Hall. Dense white candlelight suddenly lit up on both sides. The pale candlelight instantly illuminated the Buddhist temple. Four old monks who looked almost identical sat cross-legged on the futon. Behind them was the altar for the Buddha statue. There was also a strange Buddha statue in the altar. This Buddha statue was not as huge and magnificent as the ordinary temples. It was as big as an ordinary person, and looked more like a wax statue. There were no facial features and his hands formed a strange seal, like a flower bud, sitting cross-legged on the altar. But when Qin Yang saw this faceless Buddha statue, he felt a sense of horror in his heart. Alive, this was his first thought. He actually thought that this faceless Buddha statue was alive. But it looked like an ordinary faceless wax statue. It was this weird and distorted feeling that made Qin Yang feel very horrified. This is a ghost weapon. It shouldn't be a ghost seed. They want to breed a ghost seed. Liu Yun naturally saw the Buddha statue and frowned. As a spiritual master, He naturally knew the difference between ghost seeds. Ghost seed. Qin Yang's face changed slightly. The ancient city ruins of the Dacian dynasty were turned into an empty city because of the birth of a ghost seed. If this ghost seed is born, I'm afraid that Yangning city will be destroyed. No wonder the Temple of Questioning the Heart has been robbing people all the time. This must be used for a bloody ritual to breed this ghost seed. Liu Yun said in a deep voice. Amitabha, I'm considerate of you. This is not a ghost seed, but a Buddha child. The old monk Uri on the far right said. Buddha child? You monks are really thick-skinned. You can say such things. Qin Yang sneered. Most people in the world are ignorant and tyrannical like you, so they naturally can't see the obstacles clearly. Once a Buddha child is born, it can relieve the suffering of the world and let people reach the other shore. The old monk Uri said indifferently. The other shore. So you are the other shore sect. So, the Swinxin temple is actually a base of the other shore sect. Qin Yang was a little surprised when he heard these two words. Who would have thought that such a large temple would be the base of the other shore sect? No wonder it is so weird. The donor has committed serious sins. Let me and others lead the donor to the other shore and eliminate the sins. The old monk Uri said no more, holding an iron rod next to the cushion, and stood up directly. The other three old monks did the same. Holding iron rods, they slowly spread apart, forming a semicircle, surrounding Qin Yang and Liu Yun. Interesting. Let me take you to the other side first. Qin Yang grinned. He put his hands in the dragon elephant fist stance. His aura was fierce and domineering, and his whole body suddenly emerged with an extremely cold and deep aura. Chapter 211 Struggle. Qin Yang was emitting an extremely cold aura like 1,000 years of ice, causing the temperature in the Buddhist temple to drop madly. Even the candlelight burning on both sides became dimmer and dimmer. Liu Yun, you should have no problem dealing with one. Qin Yang secretly transmitted the message. He knew that Liu Yun was a heavenly soul master, and these four old monks were all masters of the three flowers gathering at the top of the head from the perspective of their aura. The difference in their cultivation was one major realm. I can hold them off. Are you sure you can handle three? Liu Yun looked astonished. When he saw these four old monks, he secretly thought it was not good. He did not expect that the foundation of the Questioning Heart Temple was so terrible that even if the monk Kungsin brought many elders and elite disciples to the front yard for support, he could still leave four old monks in the three flowers gathering at the top of the head to guard the prison heart hall. But when he heard Qin Yang's words, he was even more surprised. Before, he had joined forces with Qin Yang to force the third owner of the Blackfish building to retreat. As a result, Qin Yang can now fight three alone. Of course I can. Qin Yang grinned. Liu Yun stopped talking nonsense and urged the green wooden sword to shoot at the old monk Uchin on the left. Qian Kunlu slash. In midair, the green wooden sword instantly evolved into 6 sword lights, slashing out with some mysterious rules. The old monk Uchin shouted and quickly pointed the long stick in his hand. Clang clang clang, the iron stick kept colliding with the sword light, making a crisp sound. In terms of attack power, Liu Yun, as a sword spirit master, was not inferior to the old monk Uchin, and the fight was evenly matched. On the other side, Qin Yang also fought with the three old monks in the Buddhist temple. The three old monks Uri, Huayu, and Huxing attacked at the same time, and the three blue-black iron sticks crossed and attacked, locking Qin Yang at all angles. Qin Yang used both hands to continuously hit the boundless heavy whip, and swung it quickly, and the air suddenly burst into bursts of explosions. Clang clang twice. The two blue-black iron sticks were instantly whipped back by him. But there was still a blue-black iron rod that stabbed at his heart like a dragon coming out of a cave. Human key. Qin Yang roared, and the beaming black water key in his body suddenly circulated, quickly forming a gas shield to cover his whole body. A deep and strange beast with a dragon head, a turtle body and a snake tail seemed to appear behind him, giving him great pressure. When the blue-black iron rod stabbed his heart, Qin Yang only felt a slight pain in his chest, but not too much pain. The Hunyuan key formed by the beaming black water sutra after perfection was too tough, and even the master warriors with three flowers gathered at the top of the head could not easily break it. With a bang, Qin Yang pressed the iron rod with a palm. Under the terrifying force, the blue-black iron rod slammed into the ground. Qin Yang took a step forward, and his right fist exploded. Hiss, the roar of the dragon elephant sounded, forming a fierce and domineering fist. Dragon elephant millions of destroy mountains. Boom. A punch sent Huxing old monk flying, crashing into the wall of the Buddhist temple. The entire Buddhist temple seemed to shake. Boom boom. Two blue black iron rods also hit Qin Yang with a gloomy after image at this time. Huri and Huxing, the two old guys, seemed to realize that Qin Yang's hard kicking was terrible, and this time they swept across. Two terrifying forces hit Qin Yang at the same time, one after the other. Bang. Hunyuan Qi was finally broken, and a terrifying deep cold air suddenly burst and spread. Huri and Huayu were suddenly affected by the cold air, and their bodies froze. Qin Yang was beaten so hard that his blood surged, and he grinned at the moment he opened his mouth to spit blood, and his palms hit out like a series of lightning. Huri old monk roared, and his palm long stick hit wildly, constantly colliding with Qin Yang's flesh palm. Boom boom boom. Intensive thunder continued to explode in the Buddhist temple, and the violent thunder force continued to hit the blue black iron rod. In a short time, Qin Yang blasted out more than 10 palms. Bang. The old monk Huiri was slightly off balance by Qin Yang's violent attack. Qin Yang roared wildly, and his right hand blasted out like thunder, hitting the opponent's right shoulder hard. Bang. Huiri was also blown away by his palm. At the same time, he turned around and kicked out, just kicking the blue-black long stick that Huiyu swung. Clang. The blue-black iron stick was kicked away by Qin Yang. At the same time, he swung his head violently, and a headbutt hit the old monk Huiyu's head hard. Bang. The opponent was instantly hit dizzy, and the next moment, he was hit in the face by Qin Yang's cannonball punch. The body of the old monk Huiyu flew out suddenly, just hitting the old monk Huiri, who stood up. Boom. The Yuxin hall shook violently again. You shouldn't be so weak. You don't even open the 3 flowers gathering at the top of your head? Qin Yang narrowed his eyes and growled. The 3 old monks stood up and gathered together, all showing strange smiles. Donor, your sins are too deep. Let me help you to transcend with my boundless Buddhist teachings. Huri put his hands together with a strange smile. The next moment, his old figure suddenly swelled up, and his body was wrapped in black air. His face showed a fierce and ferocious look, just like the Arhat statue outside, with bulging muscles. Not only him, but also Huayu and Comet were the same. However, after Comet transformed, he sat cross-legged and chanted Buddhist scriptures. The suffering of the world. Boundless evil thoughts. A strange voice came out of Comet's mouth. This voice was extremely strange and unpleasant, and it made people feel like a knife cutting and a needle pricking their brains. For a while, Qin Yang and Liu Yun were affected. Especially Liu Yun, who was disturbed by his voice and reacted half a beat slower and was almost hit by Huchen's stick. At the last moment, Liu Yun seemed to use some secret method and instantly rushed out of the Buddhist temple and avoided this fatal blow. Huchen was so angry that he screamed and chased after him with a dark blue iron rod in hand. Qin Yang had no time to help Liu Yun because the 2 giants, Huri and Huayu, were already rushing towards him. The 2 men wielded iron rods with even greater and more brutal power than before, as if even the mountain peaks were smashed. Qin Yang roared wildly and suddenly activated his unparalleled strength. His muscles bulged, his blood vessels knotted, and his arms swung wildly. Dragon elephant dancing and paralleled. Boom boom boom. His arms kept colliding with the iron rod, and a terrifying wave of air erupted. But no matter how loud the sound was, it couldn't cover up the weird sound. Comet's weird chanting became more and more piercing in Qin Yang's ears, greatly affecting his reaction and state. Huri and Huayu joined forces to form an airtight after image and smash down. Qin Yang put his hands in front of his chest and kept blocking the attacks. But his body was still being hit by the crazy blue-black iron rod. After opening the 3 flowers gathering at the top of the head, Huri and Huayu's explosive power was indeed much stronger. Donor, don't struggle anymore, Huri said. Qin Yang said nothing and focused on defense. No matter how tough his body was, under the crazy beating of the 2 iron rods, his skin quickly became bruised and swollen. What's more, the opponent's blue-black iron rod was also wrapped with a strange energy, constantly trying to pollute Qin Yang's skin and penetrate into his flesh and blood. Struggle? Who is struggling? It seemed to have accumulated to a critical point. Qin Yang, who had been beaten, suddenly grinned. Chapter 212. Good fight. At the moment Qin Yang roared, the whites of his eyes turned into a deep black color, and his ki burst out again. Yin Fu opened. In the superposition of the Yin Fu opening in the state of unparalleled strength, Qin Yang's body swelled and filled again, and the beaming black water true ki was wrapped around his body. The shadow of the black tortoise with a dragon head, a turtle body and a snake tail appeared behind Qin Yang again. The next moment, Qin Yang turned into a black light and rushed out, looking for death. Double black evil spirit. Huri and Huayu roared at the same time, and the two blue black iron rods crossed together and hit Qin Yang fiercely. Because they found that Qin Yang's target was the old monk comet who was emitting sound waves to interfere. As long as Qin Yang's attack could be blocked, the opponent would definitely be in trouble again. But when Qin Yang's muscular body slammed into the two intertwined blue black iron rods, the faces of the two old guys Huri and Comet suddenly changed. The huge impact force was like a terrifying giant beast crushing over. Both men felt a sharp pain in their wrists, and the blue black iron rod was pushed away fiercely. There was no way to stop it. Feeling Qin Yang's attack, Comet did not dare to chant anymore. He stood up hurriedly, lowered his knees, and took a defensive stance. Black spirit guarding the mountain. He was wrapped in black air, and his muscles were tangled, like a dark ahad, unshakable. Qin Yang roared wildly, and the dragon elephant fist force continued to surge, and burst out from the muscles of his arms. Washan danced wildly. He wanted to take this opportunity, to crush Comet to death. Comet old monk's breath was condensed, and his fists were opened, constantly resisting Qin Yang's heavy punches. Boom boom boom. Qin Yang instantly threw more than a dozen dragon elephant heavy punches. Comet old monk was beaten so hard that his eyes were bloodshot and his arms were twisted and deformed. But he withstood Qin Yang's most violent attack. Huri and Huayu finally came to support. The three old monks joined forces again and killed Qin Yang. Qin Yang did not achieve his goal, but he was not depressed at all. Facing the siege of the three masters with three flowers gathered at the top of their heads, his deep dark eyes were full of amazing fighting spirit. Kill. Qin Yang roared wildly and directly confronted the three old monks Hui, Huiyu and Hui crossing. Boom. The four of them kept fighting, displaying various martial arts skills and constantly bursting out explosive airflow. Everything in the Yuxin hall was being destroyed madly and shook violently. As Qin Yang's punch missed, it hit a hard wooden pillar hard. Crack. The entire wooden pillar was smashed by a punch, and then the Yuxin hall collapsed with a loud bang, turning into ruins and rubble. The next moment, four figures jumped out of the ruins and fought again. This 1-on-3 battle was undoubtedly the most difficult battle Qin Yang had ever fought since he started practicing martial arts. He used all his martial arts. He even used his arm instead of the long sword to perform the evil dragon swallowing knife. The three old monks were also experienced and powerful, and the fight was also a madness. Qin Yang's injuries became more and more serious, but his strength became more and more powerful. This was due to the characteristics of the Yin Yang life and death talisman. The closer you are to death, the greater the power you can burst out. The three old monks were also not in a good situation. Qin Yang's punching power was too exaggerated, and they broke bones and twisted their bodies. Bang. Qin Yang's left shoulder was hit hard by the old monk Huayu, and his flesh and blood were smashed. But Qin Yang grinned, and his left hand was not affected at all. He hit Uri's chest with a dragon elephant, destroying the mountain. With a puff, his left hand directly pierced his chest. Donor, it's useless. We can't be killed. Huayu, whose heart was pierced, showed a weird smile. Naturally, he was just trying to scare and shock Qin Yang, because he couldn't be killed. But Huayu didn't know what evil method he practiced, but his state was similar to half human and half evil. It was true that piercing the heart could not cause fatal damage to the old monk Huayu. Not enough. Qin Yang grinned. He activated the beaming black water true ki and stimulated its deep characteristics. Suppress evil. Huayu's face changed immediately. He felt a deep and cold force eroding him. This erosion seemed to cause no harm to him, but in fact, it completely wiped out his immortality. No. The old monk Huayu screamed. Qin Yang exerted force violently, shattering his heart and all his internal organs. In fact, Qin Yang had been able to use the power of suppressing evil a long time ago, but he had been hiding it just to achieve the effect of a one-hit kill. As long as one was killed, the remaining two would be easy to deal with. With a bang, the old monk Huayu fell heavily to the ground. The next moment, Hurian Comet launched a fatal attack, hitting Qin Yang's vitals fiercely. Qin Yang's head flashed and dodged the heavy punch of the old monk Comet, but his abdomen was pierced by the iron rod of the old monk Uri. Qin Yang's face was distorted, and his body suddenly rushed forward. Puff! The blue-black iron rod completely penetrated his body, but it also brought him closer to the old monk Hui. Two iron fists hit his temple fiercely, and at the same time, the power of suppressing evil burst out violently. Bang bang. The old monk Hui seemed to be struck by lightning. His whole body was shaking, and smelly black liquid flowed out of his 5 orifices, and he fell straight down. The next moment, a dark and skinny fist hit Qin Yang's back of the head fiercely. Bang. Qin Yang's mind was buzzing violently, and he felt his body flying up, and then fell heavily to the ground. Donor. Let this old monk take you to the other side. The old monk Comet had a hideous face, and was as resentful as an evil ghost. His figure suddenly rushed forward. Qin Yang stood up with a vague consciousness, and directly pulled out the blue-black iron rod from his lower abdomen and smashed it forward fiercely. Bang! The blue-black iron rod hit the old monk Comet. But because the force was too weak, no damage was done. Comet Monk put his hands together to form a cone shape and stabbed Qin Yang's heart like lightning. Qin Yang relied on instinct to barely avoid the heart. Puff! Another bloody hole was stabbed in the chest. Qin Yang, who was seriously injured again, grinned and laughed out loud. Good fight. Good fight. Comet Monk's expression changed in shock. He thought that Qin Yang, who was exhausted, actually burst out with a burst of energy. This was the last burst of power of Yinfu. Qin Yang roared wildly and slammed his right fist on the head of Comet Monk. Bang! All his facial features were smashed by a punch. The whole person flew backwards. Before Comet Monk struggled to stand up, Qin Yang came down like crazy and stomped on him with his right leg. Dragon Elephant. Thousands of heavy stomps. Bang bang bang. One loud noise after another. It seemed as if some giant beast was rampaging in the back mountain of Wengxin Temple. It stopped after a while. Qin Yang stood on the ruins covered in blood. He was seriously injured. There were extremely terrible wounds on his lower abdomen, chest and shoulders. As for his feet, there was only a pile of rotten and disgusting blood, mud and bone pulp. Quickly end the Yinfu state. Qin Yang almost couldn't even stand still. At this time, Liu Yan also stumbled into the ruins. He held the sword in one hand, but his right hand was empty and dripping with blood. You guy actually killed a warrior with 3 flowers gathered at the top of the head. Qin Yang laughed with blood all over his mouth. You killed 3 yourself. Liu Yan also laughed. Chapter 213. Troubled Heart. The front yard of Wengxin Temple had long been reduced to a sea of burning fire, and the temple's Buddhist halls continued to collapse under the fighting of many masters. It must be said, the foundation of Wengxin Temple is indeed very deep. When most of the elites of the Yuxi department were dispatched, these monks could barely hold on. But as the fighting continued, Wengxin Temple gradually showed signs of collapse. All this, Monk Kungsin saw it all. Boom. He and Leng Kang slammed each other with their palms, and both sides retreated dozens of steps. The two terrible palm forces continued to squeeze, forming a violent gale, which instantly tore Leng Kang's mask apart, revealing his true face. Leng Kang, my Wengxin Temple has no grudges against your Zunshan division. Why did you suddenly attack tonight? Kungsin saw Leng Kang's face, and was not too surprised, but just shouted and questioned. In the entire Yangning prefecture, the forces that can launch such a large-scale attack, in addition to the Zunshan division, there are only 9 major families. I have no grudges against you. But the countless innocent souls who died in your Wengxin Temple have grudges against you. Your man-eating devil's den should have been eradicated long ago. Leng Kang shouted in a deep voice. Just you? Monk Kungsin smiled slyly when he heard what Leng Kang said. I'll just hold you back. The people in the back mountain should have been captured by our people now. Leng Kang smiled. He was playing a psychological game. Monk Kungsin was a man who would not be fooled. I'll get rid of you first, and then I'll go to the back mountain to kill all your people. Kung Sin laughed loudly. His face was ferocious, and he rushed towards Leng Kang fiercely. Leng Kang naturally circulated his whole body's vitality and quickly hit with both hands. Ghost Buddha Claw. Kung Sin no longer pretended. His body suddenly expanded, and his arms were as ferocious and thick as ghost arms, with sharp claws emerging and stabbing towards Kung Sin. Leng Kang looked solemn and quickly tapped his heart, liver, spleen, lungs and kidneys. The so-called 5 key converging to the origin is actually the essence of the 5 internal organs. Leng Kang did this to completely activate the key of his 5 internal organs and instantly strengthen his physique. At the moment, when the ghost claw attacked, Leng Kang roared, and a huge amount of vitality condensed in his palm, turning into a huge illusory palm, and hit it hard. When the palm of vitality collided with the ghost Buddha claw, a strong airflow spread. With a bang, the ghost Buddha claw tore the vitality hand to pieces. Leng Kang couldn't dodge in time, and was hit by Kung Sin's claw on the chest, tearing off a large piece of flesh and blood. "You still want to hold me back like this?" Monk Kung Sin laughed disdainfully, his whole body exuding ghost energy, and a dark ghost Buddha seemed to appear behind him, staring at him with a fierce look, and a pair of ghost claws launched the most violent attack on Leng Kang, and the airflow was completely torn apart. Leng Kang readjusted his strength and vitality, and hit with both hands in a row. But the explosive power of Monk Kung Sin was too strong, and he suppressed Leng Kang faintly. Puff, 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 claw marks appeared on Leng Kang's body. "Go to hell." Monk Kung Sin roared wildly, and suddenly put his hands together. "Ghost Buddha is pressing down on me." Boom. The ghost Buddha phantom behind him suddenly let out a fierce roar, and suddenly raised his right hand, to press towards Leng Kang. Leng Kang gathered his energy again, and hit out an illusory big palm, to fight against the opponent. Boom. The dark hand of the ghost Buddha phantom was unstoppable, and it smashed the illusory big palm fiercely like a dark cloud pressing down on the city. With a bang, Leng Kang's 5 orifices bled, and flew out fiercely. Monk Kung Sin's figure flashed, and his right hand hit out a ghost Buddha claw, about to pierce Leng Kang's heart. Leng Kang's words just now did not make Monk Kung Sin feel impatient. But this is the brilliance of Leng Kang. Because he knew that, as long as he said this, Monk Kung Sin would subconsciously want to get rid of him quickly. This subconscious thought would make even an old monster like Monk Kung Sin fall for it. His mind was unconsciously focused on Leng Kang, and he ignored some things. A light blue sword energy quietly shot out. This sword energy was like flowing water, gently flowing through the void, without any movement. It was not as sharp as ordinary sword energy, nor was it that kind of murderous coldness. It only flowed slowly, silently. Even the Monk Kung Sin himself did not notice this ray of sword energy. When the sword energy was approaching, he was terrified, but it was too late. Damn it. The Monk Kung Sin could only give up killing Leng Kang first, and exploded his own black energy fiercely. Boom. The light blue sword energy was slightly stagnant for a moment due to the impact of the black energy, but it still cut the Monk Kung Sin's throat. Puff. The throat was directly cut, and a large amount of blood spurted out. "Shangguan Yun, you are looking for death." The Monk Kung Sin looked at the middle-aged woman holding the sword. His face twisted, and his teeth seemed to be bitten and roared. "Let's see who dies." Shangguan Yun smiled slightly. Although she has not yet taken office in the Zunshan division, except for the Wengxin Temple, the 4 major sects are now very close to Zunshan. Zhao Dingshan of the Xianyang sect has even become the deputy chief. Leng Kang did not ask Zhao Dingshan to take action this time, because Shangguan Yun's Lishu swordsmanship is more suitable for secret attacks. Shangguan Yun has been waiting for an opportunity in secret to give Kung Sin a fatal blow. Although Kung Sin was not killed with one sword, he was seriously injured. Plop, the essence of the 5 internal organs in the body suddenly spread. Shangguan Yun raised the light blue long sword and rushed towards the Monk Kung Sin. On the other side, Leng Kang also flashed and came from behind. The 2 masters began to besiege the Monk Kung Sin. Leng Kang's palm method was open and closed, and his vitality was thick and condensed, with considerable power. Shangguan Yun's swordsmanship was even more silent, and the sword dropped diamonds strangely, which was difficult to guard against. Boom. No matter how strong Monk Kung Sin was, he could not defeat the 2 men. His neck, heart, and lower abdomen were cut by Shangguan Yun's long sword, and he was bleeding. Ghost Buddha. Wuxin. Suddenly, Monk Kung Sin put his hands together again and roared, as if he was going all in. The ghost Buddha's phantom appeared behind him again. The ghost Buddha slammed his hands to the ground. With a bang. It was as if hundreds of kilograms of explosives exploded. The entire mountain, where the Wengxin temple was located, shook violently. The center exploded into a pile of wreckage and ruins. The stone slabs were completely smashed into stone powder. The ground sank, and the nearby buildings disappeared. Damn it. Let Kungsin escape. Leng Kang's figure appeared in the ruins. The move of Ghost Buddha Wuxin just now was too terrifying, so he could only dodge. This move is so powerful that I'm afraid Kungsin has paid a huge price. Plus he is seriously injured. Even if he escapes, he may not be able to survive. Shangwen Yun's figure appeared next to Leng Kang. A centipede is still alive even after death. An old monster like Kugsin won't die so easily. Leng Kang shook his head. Although the battle here has ended, some elders and elite disciples of Wengxin Temple are still fighting desperately. Master Shangwen, I'll trouble you here first. I'll go to the back mountain to take a look. Leng Kang said again. No problem. Shangwen Yun agreed. Leng Kang clasped his fists and rushed to the back mountain. He really wanted to know the current situation of the back mountain. Chapter 214. Tricky. The back mountain of Wengxin Temple. When Leng Kang arrived, he saw two figures digging in the ruins. Damn it. Director Leng, you finally came. Qin Yang was digging very tired. The main reason was that he was seriously injured and had to keep digging, which was a bit too much. What are you digging? Leng Kang asked curiously. Digging for ghost seeds. Qin Yang said lightly, and this sentence almost scared Leng Kang to death. Ghost seeds. Leng Kang exclaimed. If the ghost seeds really came out, I'm afraid Yangning City will be finished. Don't worry. That ghost seed has not yet completely descended. It's just an empty shell. Qin Yang explained. What's going on? Leng Kang asked. Qin Yang told Leng Kang about the strange Buddha statue. In other words, you destroyed the Yuxin Hall when you were fighting with a few old monks. That strange Buddha statue was also buried here. Leng Kang understood. The original position of the Buddha statue should be here. Maybe because the battle was too intense. I don't know where it was beaten to. Qin Yang said softly. This is also the reason why he and Liu Yun were seriously injured and had to grit their teeth to search. This ghost seed that has not yet descended must be found. Once something goes wrong, it will be a horrible disaster. Leng Kang also realized the seriousness of the situation and said in a deep voice, I'll call someone over. He took out a talisman and input his vitality. This was a signal to the Zunming department. After all, the main responsibility of the Zunming department is not to fight, and they have been on standby below. Not long after. First, Shangwen Yun came with the people of the Zhuxi department. When she heard about the ghost seed Buddha statue, her face was gloomy. The word ghost seed is so lethal that it makes people extremely scared. These monks in the Wengxin temple are really abominable. They even want to create a ghost seed. Shangwen Yun couldn't help but curse. If the ghost seed is really allowed to descend smoothly, I'm afraid that her Lishu Sword sect will not be able to escape this disaster. Find it first. Leng Kang said softly. Immediately, many experts from the Zhuxi department also began to dig. Later, dozens of people from the Zunming department came. But Leng Kang was still dissatisfied and quickly sent someone back to the Zunshan department to pass on the news. Half an hour later, the Yangning Zunshan department suddenly blew a deep horn. Woo woo woo, why is the horn blown? What happened? Some old people from the Zunshan department were shocked. You know, this horn will only be blown in the most urgent situation. Not long after, the Bingaihu department, which has the largest number of people in the Zunshan department, quickly assembled nearly 1,000 people. After the conspiracy of the 9 great families was thwarted, Wu Qian, the former head of the Bingaihu department, was naturally cleared out long ago. The current head of the Bingaihu department is the great elder of the Lishu Sword School, Huang Wu. He wore a long sword on his waist, had a tall figure, and a pair of very sharp sword eyebrows. He stood in front of everyone in the Bingaihu department and shouted, the head of the department has ordered to go to the Wengxin temple as soon as possible. Yes, immediately. The soldiers of the military prison department set out from the patrol department and headed for the heart-searching temple. Such a commotion in the middle of the night frightened the people of Yangning prefecture into panic, and they dared not go out to check the situation. The 9 major families overreacted, fearing that the patrol department wanted to attack them, and strengthened the security forces in the palace. What? The soldiers of the military prison department left the city? Li Mansion. Li Changkang heard the report from his subordinates and frowned slightly. Yes, it seems that the abnormal behavior of the patrol department this time is not aimed at us. The subordinate said in a deep voice. Which direction did they go? Li Changkang asked. Reporting to the head of the family, it should be to the heart-searching temple. The subordinate clasped his fists. That means something happened in the heart-searching temple. Song Yechin is playing like this. Isn't he afraid of getting into trouble? Li Changkang pondered slightly. He also knew a little about the bloody and dark things done by the heart-searching temple. This is not even a secret in the 9 major families, but it is tacitly known and no one mentions it. Go to Wengxin Temple to check the situation. Try to find out more details. I want to know what happened in Wengxin Temple. Li Changkang ordered. Yes. The subordinate took the order and left. Not only the Li family, but other major families also sent spies to Wengxin Temple to check the situation. In the wilderness and forests, a figure with almost broken body was stumbling. It was the old monk Kungsin who escaped from Wengxin Temple. Damn Lishu Sword Ki, Kungsin monk roared. There were still a lot of Lishu Sword Ki left in his body. These sword energies were like small fish swimming in his body, madly cutting his flesh and bones, and destroying the healing of wounds. His injuries became more and more serious, but he did not dare to stop to heal. Enduring this severe pain all the way, Kungsin monk gritted his teeth, and persisted in front of a mountain villa. The people in the villa seemed to sense his arrival. A figure with black and white hair suddenly appeared in front of Kungsin monk. You shouldn't have come here. The long-haired man saw the miserable state of Kungsin monk, but instead of asking any questions, he coldly blamed him. But I'm here. Kungsin old monk smiled. The long-haired man fell silent, and finally took Kungsin old monk into the villa to heal him. Did the patrol of the sky do it? The long-haired man asked indifferently, while healing Kungsin old monk. Who else but them? Len Kang and Shangwen Yun teamed up. I almost didn't run away. Kungsin old monk sneered. So you didn't bring that thing out? The long-haired man said indifferently. Kungsin monk shook his head. No. Do you want to give an explanation to the Marquis? The long-haired man asked. I will naturally go and explain to him in person. It's not your turn to worry about it. Kungsin old monk said coldly. The long-haired man stopped talking and concentrated on healing Kungsin monk. Questioning Heart Temple. As Huangwa brought people over, most people gathered in the ruins of the back mountain to dig. Seeing this, Qin Yang and Liu Yun stopped and sat down to take pills to heal their wounds. Len Kang was also seriously injured, but he couldn't sit down to heal his wounds. He kept staring at the ruins. About an incense stick later, a soldier from the prison suddenly shouted, "We've found something here." In an instant, Len Kang, Shangwen Yun, and Huangwu immediately appeared next to the soldier. A face without any facial features appeared in the ruins. But everyone had a strange feeling in their hearts. This face seemed to be alive. That's it. Len Kang didn't even need to call Qin Yang to confirm. There would be no other Buddha statues that could have such evil performances except for that ghost seed. He quickly asked people to block off the area. Zuan Khan hasn't arrived yet? Len Kang asked Huangwu. When he asked people to go back, he specifically emphasized that Zuan Khan should come. When dealing with ghost seeds, spiritual masters are better at it. Why are you calling? The old man was making a fortune in the gambling house. He was called here in the middle of the night. Chapter 215 Transportation. Accompanied by a dissatisfied grumble, the old man Zuan Khan appeared strangely. His eyes were bloodshot, his face was greasy, and his hair was messy, just like those all-night gamblers. Hurry up and take a look at this ghost seed. If it really comes later, I wonder where you will go to gamble. Len Kang urged. Dig it out and take a look. Remember not to touch it. Zuan Khan glanced at the faceless face, and his expression suddenly became solemn, not as jumpy as before. Soon, this faceless Buddha statue was dug out. Even after such a violent collapse impact, this Buddha statue did not have any damage. Not even dust was stained. It's really a ghost seed. Zuan Khan frowned slightly. Let people evacuate the back mountain first. This ghost seed doesn't seem to emit any pollution at present, but it's still safer. Zuan Khan said. Len Kang nodded and asked Tuanqua to take the people from the Zhuxi department, Zunming department and Bingaihu department to guard the front yard first. As for here, only he, Shangwen Yun, Zuan Qian, Qin Yang, Liu Yun, Zhao Zinmo and other spiritual masters were left. Especially Zhao Zinmo and other spiritual masters. They had no awe for the faceless Buddha statue, and they all watched closely and even discussed it. This is the ghost seed. It looks very evil, but there is no aura. It would be great if we can take it back to study it. Several spiritual masters kept discussing it. They had no fear of the Buddha statue, but were full of curiosity. You know, the ghost seed had been extinct for many years after the Dacian dynasty, and had never appeared. It only appeared in some ancient books. For spiritual masters who like to study all kinds of strange things, they would naturally not let it go. This ghost seed is almost done. Fortunately, you acted quickly, Zuan Qian said thankfully, after observing it carefully. So what should we do with this Buddha statue now? Len Kang asked. He felt that the best way was to destroy it. It cannot be destroyed. Zuan Qian saw Len Kang's thoughts. This ghost species has formed for the most part. Once it is destroyed, the inner power will explode. This Wengsan temple is very likely to be polluted and then turned into a ghost den, which will be even more difficult to deal with at that time. Zuan Qian explained. What should we do then? Len Kang frowned. I will cast a spell to seal it first. Then transport it back to the patrol sky division, set up a great array to ward off evil spirits, and wipe it out. Zuan Qian said in a deep voice. Well, it's up to you. Len Kang nodded. Zhao Zinmo, you draw a spell to suppress evil spirits in this Buddha statue. Zuan Qian looked at Zhao Zinmo who was watching the show on the side. Zhao Zinmo did not refuse this matter. However, he was very cautious and put a lot of spells on himself. Even Qin Yang stopped healing and came to join in the fun. Zhao Zinmo was seen holding a thin and long brush, dipped in a special pigment, and began to paint on the faceless Buddha statue. One after another, subtle and complicated spells were drawn on the surface of the Buddha statue. In less than a moment, Zhao Zinmo had painted spells all over this Buddha statue. Zuan Qian asked someone to bring a huge rock, and then looked at Shangwen Yun. Sister Shangwen, help me make this rock into a stone coffin. Shangwen Yun waved the long sword in her hand without saying a word. Puff. It was like a cutting machine. After a few casual swings, the huge rock turned into a rough stone coffin. Shangwen Yun even cut out the coffin lid. Sister's sword is really sharp. Zuan Qian smiled. After that, he used his hands to pull the spiritual formula, and the white and green spiritual light flashed on his body, and dozens of illusory arms appeared out of thin air. Seeing this, everyone hurriedly stepped back 3 points. Even Qin Yang's eyes flashed a bit of solemnity. Once you touch this faceless ghost Buddha statue, no one knows what will happen. Even Zuan Qian, who seemed to be calm as usual, actually had cold sweat on his forehead. To be honest, he also had no idea what would happen next. Soon, these dozens of illusory vitality arms gently fell on the faceless ghost Buddha statue. Qin Yang secretly circulated the beaming black water key and quietly stepped back a few steps. He was not ready to attack at any time, but to run away at any time. The existence of ghost species is not something he can touch. Len Kang, Shangwen Yun and others looked even more nervous. As for Zhao Zinmo, this guy's expression was even more complicated. Excitement, fear, expectation, fear. All kinds of emotions flowed on his face. For someone like him who is devoted to studying ghost weapons and ghost species, this is definitely the most rare opportunity. Fortunately, nothing abnormal happened. Zuan Qian breathed a sigh of relief, circulated his spiritual power to control dozens of illusory palms, lifted the faceless Buddha statue out of thin air, and carefully placed it in the sarcophagus. Len Kang said nothing, picked up the coffin lid, and covered it directly. Zuan Qian took out a copper lamp and placed it on the coffin. Puff. The copper lamp lit up by itself and lit up the yellow beam light. As long as this lamp doesn't go out, it should be nothing. Zuan Qian breathed a sigh of relief. The back of his shabby Taoist robe was soaked. That's fine. Len Kang wiped the sweat off his face. Continue to draw the talisman for me. Don't leave any gaps. Zuan Qian said again. This job was naturally done by Zhao Zinmo. This time, it took a full hour, and Zhao Zinmo's hands almost cramped. Finally, the stone coffin was filled with talismans. At this moment, the sky was slightly bright and purple. "Take it back first," Zuan Khan said in a deep voice. It was not easy to carry the coffin. Len Kang called 8 real power warriors, all of whom were carrying talismans. Zuan Khan and other spiritual masters guarded. One of the spiritual masters took a deep breath, and his stomach swelled strangely, becoming round like a balloon. The next moment, he opened his mouth and spit out a thick white mist. The white mist spread rapidly with the stone coffin as the center, covering the area of several meters. In this way, people outside could not see what was inside the white mist. Len Kang and Shang Wenyan were guarding in front and behind. In this way, everyone returned to Yangning City at the fastest speed. Along the way, Len Kang and Shang Wenyan generously released their own aura, so that the spies dared not approach. Finally, they returned to the patrol department without any danger. Finally, they brought back something, which aroused the curiosity of the major forces in the city. Soon, the patrol department also issued a notice, listing the dark and terrifying deeds of the Questioning Heart Temple. This time, Yangning City was completely blown up. The Questioning Heart Temple has been in Yangning Prefecture City for so many years, and it has long formed the image of a Buddhist holy place in the hearts of many people. But now, looking at the evidence of crimes announced by the patrol department, it is simply a cannibalistic devil's cave. I went to the Questioning Heart Temple 2 days ago. Doesn't this mean that I just walked through the gates of hell? It's really fortunate that I have never believed in Buddhism. It's terrible that even temples are cannibalistic these days. Many people talked about it. As for the 9 major families, their eyes were not on this point, because they had known about the things that the Questioning Heart Temple had done. They just wanted to know what the Sky Patrol had brought back. Chapter 216 Bidao Zenwu. Shen Family Mansion. Since the 9 great families were swept out of the Sky Patrol division, morale has been low and contacts have decreased. This time, it was a rare gathering again, and all the heads of the 9 great families were present. Everyone should know that the Questioning Heart Temple was destroyed by the Sky Patrol division last night. At dawn today, the people of the Sky Patrol division escorted something back, but it was covered by the white mist of the spiritual master, so we couldn't find out clearly. What do you think this thing is? As the host, Shen Sangxiu naturally sat in the main seat. Could it be a treasure or something? Mo Yunfen, the head of the Mo family, frowned. If it wasn't a treasure, the Sky Patrol division wouldn't have to be so secretive. Li Changkong, who had a grudge against the Sky Patrol division, sneered. But what kind of treasure can be hidden in that damn place of the Questioning Heart Temple? Zheng Yuanshi snorted coldly. Last time at the post station, it was Mo Yunfen, the idiot, who compromised first, and Zheng Yuanshi was very dissatisfied with him. Zheng Yuanshi, you don't have to argue with me all the time. If you really don't agree, let's go out and have a fight. Mo Yunfen narrowed his eyes. Are you afraid? Zheng Yuanshi sneered. The smell of gunpowder suddenly became strong. Enough. Now the Sky Patrol division and the 3 major sects are eyeing us covetously. If our 9 great families start fighting among themselves again, I'm afraid Song Yejun will wake up laughing in his dreams. Towning, the former deputy director of the Yangning Sky Patrol division, spoke out to stop them. If these 2 family heads really fight, I'm afraid the hearts of the 9 great families will be completely confused. Although Towning's strength is not as good as Shen Sangxiu, his seniority is high enough. When Mo Yunfen and Zheng Yuanshi heard this, they stopped talking immediately. Both sides are not 3-year-old children. It's okay to talk a few words. If they really fight, it will not benefit anyone. Seeing the situation eased, Shen Sangxiu spoke again. Now our people have been cleared out of the patrol department. It's difficult to know what the patrol department has brought back. But behind the Questioning Heart Temple is the one from the Fuhei Marquis mansion. In this way, we can sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Li Changkang pondered and said, it will naturally be beneficial for us if both sides fight. But the old Marquis has not shown up for a long time, so I'm afraid he may not go to war with the patrol department. Although the Fuhei Marquis mansion is powerful, there is a problem. As the helmsman of the Fuhei Marquis mansion, Fuhei Marquis is too old. He has not appeared in front of the world for a long time. The news of his death has even begun to spread among the people. Even the Fuhei Marquis mansion did not make any rumors, as if it was tacitly agreeing. But many forces still dare not test it. This is the power of Fuhei Marquis in Yangning Prefecture. I think maybe this is a test. Song Yejin is testing whether Fuhei Marquis is dead or not. Towning said. It's possible. After all, Wengxin Temple is one of the 4 great sects. In terms of influence, it is far more influential than Blackfish Tower. Destroying it can indeed have a testing effect. Zheng Yuanxi spoke again. This time, perhaps we can really test out the secret of Fuhei Marquis Mansion. Shen Sangxiu nodded. If Fuhei Marquis Mansion is willing to step forward, our family can also cooperate. Mo Yunfen said in a deep voice. Then wait and see. Fuhei Marquis Mansion should respond to this matter. We are not in a hurry, but we have to find a way to investigate the thing that was transported back to the Patrol Sky Division. Let's think of a solution. Shen Sangxiu said softly. He felt that the situation in Yangning Prefecture City was getting more and more tense. Now even Fuhei Marquis Mansion was involved. All this was because of the Patrol Sky Division. He seemed to want to break the original order of Yangning Prefecture City, and even Fuhei Marquis Mansion began to test it. Although Shen Sangxiu and Song Yejin had worked together for several years. But it must be said, he could not see through this chief from Daewoo Imperial City at all. In a private room of a restaurant in Yangning Prefecture, Qin Yang was drinking with Liu Yun. Liu Yun was not distressed by his broken arm, and Qin Yang could even feel his mood at the moment, which was cheerful and happy. It is really a relief to wipe out the Temple of Questioning Heart this time. Liu Yun took a sip of wine. He has been in the martial arts world for many years, and the Temple of Questioning Heart is the darkest and most terrifying place he has ever encountered. With his paranoid and righteous character, if he does not wipe out the Temple of Questioning Heart, he will probably be restless in this life. Why do I feel that your aura has changed a little after you broke an arm? Are you going to break through? Qin Yang said in surprise, holding a wine bowl in his hand. That's right. After the destruction of the Temple of Questioning Heart, my thoughts became clear, and I touched the threshold of the spirit realm. Next, I will find a deep mountain forest and retreat to break through. Liu Yun smiled. It's really strange that you spiritual masters can break through with this. Qin Yang raised the wine bowl in his hand and took a sip of wine. Nothing strange. Outsiders think we spiritual masters are strange just because we are difficult to approach. Actually, spiritual masters are people with deep obsessions. Only by solving one obsession after another can they break through. Liu Yun explained. What if you can't solve it? Qin Yang asked. Then you can't solve it. Liu Yun smiled. Okay. I wish you a breakthrough to the spirit realm as soon as possible. Qin Yang blessed. The two drank for more than an hour before saying goodbye and leaving. Liu Yun went to the outside of the city. Qin Yang went to the Sky Patrol Division. The moment they left the restaurant, they parted ways. Liu Yun had already found the opportunity to break through. Qin Yang did the same. After returning to the Sky Patrol Division, he rushed to the Spiritual Heart building without stopping. This time, Leng Kang was still very generous to eliminate the Questioning Heart Temple and gave Qin Yang 2000 contribution points. After arriving at the Spiritual Heart building, Qin Yang directly exchanged the remaining copy of the Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong, and then exchanged it for some Yun Shudan. Everything was ready, and Qin Yang entered a secret room for practice to break through. This time, he must break through to the Grand Master level. After calming down, Qin Yang opened Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong. This was a fragment, so Qin Yang had to read it carefully to see if there were any missing parts in the chapters of the three flowers gathering at the top of the head. When he read it carefully, he confirmed that there were none. Compared with Beaming Black Water Sutra, Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong is more profound and obscure, and more dangerous. Bidao is destined to die, and Nandao is destined to live. Practicing this technique will actually lead to a state similar to death. And if you can't break free from this state of suspended animation, you will really die. It's even more terrifying than real death, because the soul is destroyed. However, after successful practice, this technique can even produce some extraordinary power. For example, after practicing the entry, you can form the water control magic. This surprised Qin Yang very much. because this is the first time he has seen a technique that can form a magic in the process of practice, and it doesn't need the power of the system panel. Interesting. Qin Yang muttered to himself. He began to try to comprehend this forbidden Tangsuan technique and feel the meaning of death. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217 Fear. After spending a few days, Qin Yang had memorized the 3 flowers gathering at the top of the head of Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong. The so-called 3 flowers gathering at the top of the head is the unity of essence, energy, and spirit. When the brain, heart and Qi resonate at the same time, the true energy will be sublimated in that instant and transformed into vitality. Even Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong is almost the same routine, but the visualization method is very dangerous, and you may be immersed in death at any time. Qin Yang is fearless. After making sure that he has made all preparations, he began to practice. After swallowing the Yunshu pill, Qin Yang changed the operation route of beaming black water true art, and instead operated the operation method of Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong with great confidence. At the same time, he visualized an endless, empty and dark deep sea world in his mind. There are no living things in this deep sea world, and even the water flow will not swim. There is only endless silence, coldness, and loneliness. Qin Yang's consciousness is immersed in this deep sea world. This visualization method may not seem as intense as beaming black water true scripture, but it is more dangerous and terrifying, because Qin Yang didn't know what he was going to do. He just stayed in this deep sea world, expecting what would happen. But nothing happened. Just like that, Qin Yang's mind slowly fluctuated. His mind slowly changed from curiosity to boredom, and then became very lonely. After loneliness, it was numbness. Is this death? Endlessly sinking here. Suddenly, an idea was born in Qin Yang's mind. This idea made his numb mind suddenly occupied by fear. No living creature is not afraid of death. The so-called battle without fear of death is essentially for immortality. The incomparable fear is eroding Qin Yang's consciousness. Under the breeding of fear, Qin Yang has no thoughts and no consciousness. He seems to be merging with this deep sea world. No, I shouldn't die. No one in this world can kill me. Suddenly, Qin Yang's lost consciousness sent out an extreme thought. In an instant, the water flow in the deep sea world seemed to flow all of a sudden. At this moment, Qin Yang opened his eyes. His spirit, energy, and spirit merged into one in an instant, and the true energy in his body seemed to sublimate and turned into a cold and dead platinum energy. This is the Bidao Zen Wu energy, full of the cold energy of death. After a full hour, the transformation of the true energy in his body was finally completed. At the same time, Qin Yang suddenly stretched out his right hand, as if he had learned it by himself, and the air and moisture instantly condensed in his hand, turning into a light blue water ball. The water control magic really appeared. Qin Yang muttered to himself. He opened the proficiency panel. Host, Qin Yang Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong. Level 1, 1/800. Beaming black water true Gong. Perfect. Suppressing evil. Yin and Yang Life and Death Talisman Sutra. Level 7. Yin Talisman. 600/1200 Yang Talisman. 635/1200. Evil Dragon Swallowing Evil Knife. Great Accomplishment. 875/2000. Dragon Elephant Fist. Perfect. Unparalleled in strength. Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong naturally appeared in the system panel. After Qin Yang took a look, he began to carefully comprehend the wonderful changes after being promoted to a higher realm. The first is of course the vitality. This Bidao Zen Wu vitality is much stronger than beaming black water true Gang, with terrible penetrating power and death characteristics. The flesh will gradually transform under the nourishment of the vitality. Moreover, after the condensation of the spirit, Qin Yang's perception is more sensitive, and his reaction is more amazing. After the visualization of the deep sea of death, the spiritual realm is also greatly touched. Fortunately, I left a thought. Qin Yang muttered to himself. Before he began to visualize the deep sea of death, his mind kept repeating a sentence. I'm the only one in this world who has a system panel. I become the strongest and no one can kill me. When he was occupied by the fear of death, it was this thought that saved him. Of course, Qin Yang also felt that this thought itself was correct and natural. Swallowed a few more Yunshu pills. Qin Yang closed his eyes and adjusted his breath. He had to get familiar with the characteristics and operating rules of Bidao Zuanwu's vitality as soon as possible. The power that cannot be controlled is a very dangerous power. Qin Yang knew this very well. He would not come out of retreat until he was completely familiar with the Bidao Zuanwu Yuan Qi. Another 5 or 6 days passed. Qin Yang got up and left the secret room. When he walked to the square of the Zunshan division, he found that it was surrounded by soldiers from the Bingaihu department. What's going on? Qin Yang was a little surprised. Qin Yang, where have you been these days? Zhao Xinmo just walked out of the Zuanling department. After not seeing each other for a while, Zhao Xinmo's dark circles became thicker, and his eyeballs were bloodshot. I retreated for a while. What's going on? Qin Yang asked curiously. It's the ghost Buddha statue you found. After a few days of research, Zuan Khan plans to set up a 5 thunder sky blasting formation. Directly summon the thunder to blast, and smash the ghost Buddha statue to pieces. Zhao Xinmo said casually. This kind of thing is confidential in the Zunshan division. But Qin Yang is qualified to access such confidential information, so Zhao Xinmo told him the truth. 5 thunders bombarding the sky. This name is quite intimidating. I wonder how powerful it is. Qin Yang said with a smile. This formation is not simple. I guess only old man Zuan Khan can set it up in the entire Yangning prefecture. As for its power, you will see it tomorrow. Zhao Xinmo said lightly. Can I go in and take a look now? Qin Yang asked curiously. Of course I can. I'll take you in. Zhao Xinmo nodded. With Zhao Xinmo leading the way, Qin Yang finally came to the core of the 5 thunders bombarding the sky formation. After passing through many checkpoints, I saw peach trees planted on the ground in a strange formation, forming a peach forest. The ground was painted with dense blue-black thunder pattern spells, and even the trunks of the peach trees were also painted with this thunder pattern. The old gambling ghost Zuan Khan sat cross-legged in the depths of the peach forest, as if he was adjusting his mind. The essence of the formation is to mobilize the power of heaven and earth with a formation pattern. In the operation of the formation pattern, it will greatly consume the mind. That ghost seed Buddha statue is not here. Qin Yang did not bother Zuan Khan and stopped outside the peach blossom forest. No, it will be transported here tomorrow. I originally thought I could study it for a few more days. Zhao Xinmo even felt a little bit of pity. For a research enthusiast like him, ghost seeds are indeed very attractive. I have been in seclusion for many days. Then what have you studied? Qin Yang asked. No, not even a single thing. It's been so long since the ghost seed Buddha statue was transported back from the questioning heart temple, and there has been no unusual movement. Zhao Xinmo shook his head slightly. So quiet? Qin Yang was a little surprised. Yes, it's too quiet, which makes people uneasy. That's why old man Zuan Khan was in a hurry to set up the 5 thunders bombarding the sky array. I thought I could rest easy if it was solved early. Zhao Xinmo said softly. Chapter 218 Shocking News. The ghost species is too mysterious and has not appeared in the world for too long. Even if the ghost species Buddha statue does not show any abnormality now, no one can guarantee that it will remain safe and sound. Therefore, destroying it is the safest and most direct method. Of course, the premise of all this is that it can be destroyed. It is not so easy to destroy the ghost species Buddha statue. Then I will come to see it tomorrow. Qin Yang said no more. Zhao Xinmo still had to deal with some chores, so he stayed in the peach blossom forest. Qin Yang returned to his room and continued to familiarize himself with Bidao Zenwuzu and Gong. One night passed like this. On the second day, when Qin Yang came to the Xiangsunsi Square, he found that several big wigs of Yangning Xiangsunsi gathered together. Song Yechun, Leng Kang, Ma Cheng, Zhao Dingshan, Huang Kuo, even the leader of Lishu Sword Sect Shangwen Yun and the master of Bei Temple Fiu Taoist also appeared. Obviously, they were afraid of something going wrong when destroying the ghost species Buddha statue this time, so they came to take charge. Qin Yang did not mix with these bigwigs, but went to Zhao Xinmo's side. When will it start? Qin Yang asked quietly. About half an hour. Zhao Zinmo glanced at the sky. Qin Yang nodded slightly and stood aside and waited quietly. Half an hour later, Qin Yang heard heavy footsteps. Looking back, he saw several evil killers carrying a rough stone coffin painted with cinnabar runes. Everyone's face became solemn. Soon, the stone coffin was carried into the peach blossom forest. "Let's go. You can see it clearly only when you go to the tower," Zhao Zinmo said softly. "Standing here, the view is blocked by the peach blossom forest, and it is difficult to see the situation inside." Song Yechun and others did the same and went to a watchtower. Qin Yang, Zhao Zinmo and several spiritual masters went to another watchtower. When they reached the highest point, the view was naturally widened, and they could see Zuan sitting cross-legged in the middle of the peach blossom forest. The stone coffin was already in front of him. Zuan stood up and pushed the lid of the stone coffin open with one palm. How could this happen? Did the ghost Buddha statue die by itself? When the stone coffin was opened, everyone was shocked. Qin Yang had sharp eyes and could clearly see that the faceless ghost Buddha statue in the stone coffin had melted. It was as if the wax figure was burned by high temperature and began to melt. The whole head had melted, and the neck had melted by nearly half. "Zhao Zinmo, what do you think happened?" Qin Yang asked softly. "Could it be that we haven't held a sacrificial ceremony these days, so this ghost Buddha statue can't maintain its power and melted by itself?" Zhao Zinmo guessed. "It's possible that the ghost species hasn't appeared for so many years, which means that there should still be some kind of restrictions in our world," another spiritual master said. Qin Yang was thoughtful. This statement does make some sense. With the existence of the forbidden technique of isolating the world, the power of the ghost species is difficult to descend, and this situation is indeed reasonable. It seems that today should be very smooth, another spiritual master said. When Zuan saw the melted ghost Buddha statue, his expression was indeed more relaxed. In order to prevent the spread of the contaminating power of the ghost species, he formed seals with both hands and quickly activated the 5 thunders bombarding the sky array. In an instant, all the lightning patterns surged and flashed with terrible blue-black lightning. Boom. The next moment, as if the sky was angry, countless thick and dense dark clouds appeared in the sky. The wind blew violently, and the lightning snake rolled away. 5 thunders bombarding the sky. Zuanji's Taoist robe was blown violently by the strong wind. He held the sword in his right hand, formed a seal with his left hand, and chanted a spell. Boom. Zuanji suddenly pointed the peachwood sword at the faceless Buddha statue. Boom. A thick beam of lightning suddenly fell down and hit the faceless Buddha statue hard. Boom, the terrifying lightning burst out and instantly blew up the stone coffin. Some charred marks appeared on the faceless Buddha statue, and its body began to melt again. Seeing this, Zuan did not pause and activated the thunder pattern of the formation, causing another thunder to strike down. Boom. The power of this thunder was even more terrifying. The entire Xianshan division was rendered pale by the blazing thunder light. This time, the ghost seed Buddha statue was blasted by thunder and lightning, leaving only half of its body. Puff. Zuan bit his tongue fiercely and spurted out a blood mist. The blood mist sprayed on the peachwood sword, flashing a terrible and mysterious aura of destruction. The blue-black formation patterns of the entire formation began to flicker. The next moment, boom, 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 boom. This time, Zuan summoned 3 blue-black divine thunders at once, and they hit the faceless Buddha statue at the same time. The terrifying and blazing thunderlight spread instantly, annihilating the entire peach blossom forest. The strong and dazzling thunderlight even made Qin Yang close his eyes and couldn't look directly. As for his ears, they were already buzzing. It took a long time. Qin Yang felt the buzzing sound gradually disappear, and the light perception in his eyes also weakened a lot. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the peach blossom forest in the square had turned into a charred land. The peach blossom wood, the stone coffin, and the ghost-type Buddha statue were completely turned into ashes. Only Zuan was left standing in the center. He also seemed to be exhausted, using the peachwood sword to support his body and panting loudly. The Taoist robe on his body was also stained by the lightning and turned into charred black. Seeing this scene, Song Yechun hurriedly asked someone to help Zuan up. It seems that the ghost-type Buddha statue was completely blasted into ashes by the thunder. Qin Yang looked at the charred land and said to himself, I didn't expect it to be so smooth. It seems that the influence of this forbidden technique of isolating the world is still very strong. Zhao Zinmo said thoughtfully, if the void can bring down power, this ghost-type Buddha statue may not be so smooth. Dark secret room. The smell of decay, death and filth permeates. A sinister and cruel voice sounded, my ghost seed was destroyed. It doesn't matter, it can be repaired. Another voice sounded, then proceed as planned. The sinister voice said lightly, as you command. After the destruction of the ghost seed Buddha statue, everyone in the patrol department breathed a sigh of relief. After all, it was a ghost seed. Even if it was the kind of ghost seed that had not yet descended completely, it was still very fearful. Now that it was destroyed by the 5 thunderbolts in public, everyone was relieved. And these news slowly spread to the ears of the 9 major families. Hearing that the things brought back by the patrol department were ghost seeds, the people of the 9 major families were shocked. If something happened to this ghost seed, the entire Yangning city would be doomed. Fortunately, it was now dealt with by the patrol department. But the people of the family were still frightened and broke into a cold sweat. As for the Fuheihao mansion, even if the questioning heart temple was destroyed, there was no action, as if it had no connection with the questioning heart temple. But 5 days later, the Fuheihao mansion suddenly issued an obituary. The obituary was very concise, and the general meaning was that the Fuhei Marquis, who was feared by everyone in Yangning Prefecture, had died of old age at the age of 109. When this news came out, the entire Yangning Prefecture was shocked. Chapter 219 Old Dog. Who is Fuheihao? He is a legendary figure known to everyone in Yangning Prefecture. His reputation and influence are unmatched in Yangning Prefecture. After confirming the authenticity of the obituary, the prefectural government even hung dense white silk on the city wall to express respect and grief for Fuheihao. Even the people in the city, every household also hung white silk, lit incense and candles on the streets at night, and burned paper money, which was enough to show the influence of Fuheihao. Even Qin Yang in the patrol department heard the news. Is Fuheihao dead? Qin Yang looked strange. He was in the tea room of the Xuxi Hall, and opposite him was Leng Kang, the director of the Xuxi department. Yes, it has been proved that this obituary was indeed issued by Fuheihao Mansion. As for whether it is real death or fake death, it is difficult for us to judge. Leng Kang took a sip of tea. Fake death. Could it be that Fuheihao realized that our patrol department wanted to take action against him and ran away in fear? It shouldn't be that case. Qin Yang said softly. The reputation of Fuheihao was earned through fighting on the battlefields of mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Such a person, regardless of whether he is good or bad, would not do such a thing as faking his death and escaping. Moreover, the power of Fuheihao's mansion is not weaker than the current Zunshan division. I'm also wondering what is the benefit of Fuheihao's fake death. But after thinking about it, I still feel that fake death is not of much benefit to Fuheihao. So I'm wondering, is Fuheihao really dead? Leng Kang said in a deep voice. He was also a little overwhelmed now. Whether Fuheihao was dead or not became his biggest concern. Then why not go and see? You can go directly to Fuheihao's mansion to pay your respects. If you can see Fuheihao's body, you should know whether he is really dead or faked his death. Qin Yang suggested. That's what the chief thought. According to the information from Fuheihao's mansion, a 3-day and 3-night ritual will be held for Fuheihao. He asked me to call you as well. Leng Kang said. Obviously, Song Yechun also couldn't guess whether Fuheihao was really dead or not, so he could only take people to the mansion to check in person. It should be quite lively to visit Fuheihao's mansion. Qin Yang smiled. Well, not only us, but also people from the 9 great families will go. Leng Kang nodded. Now all the major forces in Yangning City are curious. Is Fuheihao dead or not? When are you going? Qin Yang asked. This afternoon. You can carry your weapons with you, as long as you don't enter the morning hall. Leng Kang added. Who knows what will happen when you go to Fuheihao's mansion this time, so weapons must be brought. Then I'll go back and pack them up. Qin Yang nodded. The sun sets. The archway of the patrol department is very long. Several figures gather in front of the archway. The two deputy heads of the patrol department, Zhao Dingshan and Ma Cheng, the head of the demon slaying department and the patrol department, Len Kang, and of course Qin Yang. These four can be said to be the top combat forces of the patrol department. Song Yejun wants to stay in the patrol department and did not choose to go. Be careful when you go to Fu Heihao's mansion this time, Ma Cheng said in a deep voice. Even if Fu Heihao is not dead, his blood and ki have long been declining. What's so scary? Zhao Dingshan disagreed. In many people's minds, Fu Heihao has not shown his face for many years, naturally because his blood and ki have declined, and his strength is not as good as before. Not showing his face is just to increase the sense of mystery and make people feel daunted. But Fu Heihao's mansion has a close relationship with Wenzin Temple. It is possible that there is some evil method. Deputy Chief Zhao should not be careless, Len Kang reminded. That's possible. Zhao Dingshan did not mean to argue, but his eyes flickered slightly. As for Qin Yang, he just stood aside and did not speak. Let's go first, Ma Cheng said. The four of them certainly did not need to ride horses, and they jumped and headed towards Fu Heihao's mansion. Fu Heihao's mansion is not in Yangningshao City, but on the outskirts of the city. When Qin Yang arrived at Fu Heihao's mansion, he saw a mansion that occupied a large area, but the style was very simple, and there was no luxury at all. This is Fu Heihao's mansion. The mansion was naturally covered with white silk, and two large white lanterns were hung in front of the door. People who came to pay their respects formed a long queue in front of the door. Of course, not everyone can go to the morning hall to pay their respects to Marquis Fu Hei. Most people will be blocked outside the door and have no choice but to leave. An old acquaintance is here, Ma Cheng suddenly sneered. Qin Yang looked back. He saw more than a dozen people riding horses and galloping over. The leader was the head of the Li family, Li Changkang. When enemies meet, they are particularly jealous. What's more, Qin Yang and Li Changkang are enemies who killed their sons. Li Changkang's face darkened instantly. He swung the reins violently, as if he didn't see Qin Yang and others, and rushed over directly. Qin Yang naturally wouldn't give way. He sneered, clenched his right fist, and his muscles burst out with strong power, and hit hard. Li Changkang didn't expect Qin Yang to dare to take action in front of Marquis Fu Hei's mansion. He originally just wanted to force the other party to give way, and save the face of a patrol officer first. But now that Qin Yang has taken action, the nature is completely different. With a bang, Li Changkang flipped over and landed backwards. The horse he was riding was instantly hit in the head by Qin Yang's punch and fell to the ground. For a moment, everyone in Fu Heihao mansion heard the noise and turned back to check the situation. When they saw the two parties making trouble, most of them showed an expression of watching a good show. The patrol department and the noble family started fighting again. This time, they even started fighting in front of Fu Heihao mansion. Qin Yang, this is a 1,000-mile horse. How do you settle this account? Li Changkang stared at Qin Yang with sinister eyes. But the other party didn't think so and smiled. I even killed your son. What's killing a horse? You should settle your son's account first, before you talk big. These two sentences can be said to be heartbreaking. Even Len Kang behind him looked strange. This was too poisonous. It was possible that it would really stimulate Li Changkang to go crazy and fight in front of Fu Heihao mansion. You are looking for death. Sure enough, when Li Changkang heard these words, he was filled with anger. The mixture of new and old hatreds almost made him lose his mind. Everyone, if you are here to mourn the Marquis, we welcome you. If you are here to make trouble and fight, to settle the grudges of the dead, please go somewhere else. Suddenly, a figure walked out of the Fu Hei Marquis's mansion. This was a wealthy old man, holding a string of copper coins in his hand, and said with a smile. Seeing this man, Li Changkang regained some of his sanity and finally did not make a move. Qin Yang knew that he could not fight, and shook his head slightly. He also wanted to try whether he could beat Li Changkang to death with a few punches. After all, he had not fought with anyone since he broke through to the three flowers gathering at the top. Everyone, follow me. The wealthy old man also breathed a sigh of relief and invited the two parties to enter the mansion. Li Changkang snorted coldly and led his people into the Fu Hei Marquis's mansion first. Len Kang was not in a hurry and smiled and said, Qin Yang, it seems that you really made Li Changkang anxious. Just an old dog. Qin Yang shook his head. Haha, Qin Yang is right. Zhao Dingshan laughed. Qin Yang's expression became a little strange. But at this time, the rich old man called the servant to take them into the mansion. Chapter 220 Conflict. The Fu Heihao mansion may not look luxurious, but it is indeed very large, like a mountain villa, with many courtyards and many connections. Qin Yang had talked with Leng Kang when he came here. There are nearly 1,000 people living in the Fu Heihao mansion. Fu Heihao himself has only a weak bloodline and only one son. Later, this son was born unexpectedly when he followed him to fight, leaving only a grandson, who is now the commander-in-chief of the BGO army. However, Fu Heihao has many brothers and sisters, and they have branched out and spread out, with hundreds of clansmen, big and small, living together in this mansion. Moreover, the family rules of Fu Heihao mansion are strict, and disciples in the clan are never allowed to go out and bully men and women. Once discovered, they will be severely punished. In this way, Fu Heihao mansion has naturally accumulated a lot of reputation in the eyes of the people in Yangning's city. Walking in Fu Heihao mansion all the way, Qin Yang was observing secretly. People in the mansion are easy to identify as long as they wear a white scarf on their heads and mourning clothes. They all walked with their heads down, and their expressions could not be seen clearly, but some sobbing sounds could be heard. But Qin Yang felt that the atmosphere in the mansion was a little weird. It looked like they were well prepared and full of sadness. But sadness was not enough. Fu Heihao was not a simple person. He was the pillar of Fu Heihao's mansion. When he fell, the people in the mansion were more worried and panicked in addition to sadness. But Qin Yang did not feel these two emotions. He just felt that the mansion was in order and everything seemed to have been rehearsed for a long time. But he did not say much, keeping everything in his heart. Soon, they were taken into a hall. This was not a mourning hall, but a reception hall. The servants also explained to Qin Yang and the others that they had to wait until the 3-day ritual of transcendence was over before they could go to mourn Fu Heihao. In other words, they had to stay here for 3 days. Although this rule was a bit strange, Leng Kang was not easy to ask. This kind of thing has always been decided by the host. When they stepped into the reception hall, they were all familiar faces. Mo Yunlian, Wu Qian, Shen Sangxiu, Tao Ning. When these people saw Qin Yang Leng Kang coming in, their expressions immediately became gloomy. In a sense, they were kicked out by the patrol department and should be regarded as dogs that have lost their homes. Everyone, long time no see. Ma Cheng greeted them with a smile, as if he didn't see the cold eyes of these people. Of course, in the eyes of Shen Sangxiu and others, this was simply a provocation. Long time no see. Only Shen Sangxiu replied. The rest of the people just had a cold face. Ma Cheng smiled and didn't provoke anymore. There were many seats in the hall, but most of them were occupied by people from aristocratic families. Qin Yang yawned out of boredom and saw an empty chair in the corner. He was about to sit down and close his eyes to rest. As a result, a person from an aristocratic family got there first and sat down on that chair. Qin Yang was stunned for a moment, then asked with a smile, "What's your name?" The man from the aristocratic family was a big man with slightly dark skin and a sturdy physique. He sneered, "Your grandfather's name is Wu Hei. Ha ha ha. Wu Hei, when did you have a grandson?" "That's right, this grandson doesn't look very good." In the reception hall, there was an immediate burst of wild laughter and sarcasm. Wu Qian also sneered. This Wu Hei was naturally from the Wu family and was also his younger brother. His cultivation was at the 3 flowers gathering at the top of the head. In the Wu family, except for the head of the family, he was the strongest. Qin Yang was not angry at all and smiled. "Say it again. I said your grandfather's name is Wu Hei. Any objections?" Wu Hei smiled disdainfully. "I like unruly young people like you the most." Qin Yang grinned, and his whole body suddenly radiated a wave of cold and deep extreme coldness. At this moment, Wu Hei felt his scalp tingling, and he felt that there was an endless death intention coming to annihilate him. He roared, and his vitality burst out, and he hit out fiercely. Because a fist wrapped in a faint platinum light had already attacked fiercely. This punch was earth-shattering, with a terrifying artistic conception of destroying mountains. The airflow in the entire reception hall was driven and squeezed by this punch, forming a terrifying wind whistle. When the fist and palm met, Wu Hei only felt a violent and deep force coming. Boom. The muscles, bones, blood, and flesh of his right arm were instantly squeezed and exploded by this huge force, and then exploded fiercely. Puff. Wu Hei sprayed out a blood mist, and his body flew out fiercely. Then there was another loud bang. The walls of the hall were smashed by him. You are so polite. You even know to give me a seat. It seems that people from aristocratic families still know some courtesy. Qin Yang smiled and sat on the chair that Wu Hei originally sat on. Wu Kan's face twitched. He was able to blast Wu Hei away with one punch. How terrible is Qin Yang's power? Vitality. I didn't expect you to be promoted to the realm of three flowers gathering at the top of the head. Shen Sangxiu was very surprised. Why, Deputy Chief Shen also wants to fight with me? Qin Yang asked. Shen Sangxiu was too cunning and was not moved at all. He shook his head gently. It's not suitable to spar now. As for Mo Yunlian, Li Changkong and other people who had grudges against Qin Yang, they looked very ugly when they saw that he had now broken through to the state of three flowers gathering at the top of the head. How could they take revenge if this continued? This kid actually broke through? Len Kang was also very surprised. You know, when Qin Yang first came to Yangning's Unshan division, he remembered that he was still at the level of Ganki cultivation. In the past 6 months, he has broken through to the state of three flowers gathering at the top of the head. So terrifying. After this episode, the people of the family did not come forward to provoke again. And Mo Hei, who was beaten out, did not come back. As for the people of Fu Heihao Mansion, they seemed to have no idea what happened here, and no one asked. Until one stick of incense later, a wealthy old man holding a string of copper coins in his hand walked in with a long-haired man with a smile on his face. The long-haired man seemed to be very familiar with the people of the family and kept greeting and reminiscing about the past. The wealthy old man turned and left the reception hall. As for the big hole in the wall, he seemed not to see it. Who is this person? Qin Yang sent a voice message to Len Kang. Judging from the man's dress and temperament, he didn't seem to be from a noble family, and he looked like a hermit. This person's name is Shen Yu, and he is a martial artist at the Five Keys converging to the Origin Realm. More than 10 years ago, he came from another place and founded Piao Villa outside the city. But this person is indifferent to fame and fortune, and is devoted to practicing swordsmanship. He has not developed any power, so he is not well known in the city. Len Kang introduced Qin Yang. I think he seems to be very familiar with people from noble families. Qin Yang sent a voice message again. After all, he is a martial artist at the Five Keys converging to the Origin Realm, so naturally there are people who flatter him. Besides, he hardly participates in anything and has no conflicts of interest. Len Kang said. Qin Yang nodded. At this moment, rumble. Qin Yang felt the ground shaking and a huge sound came from outside the hall. What is this? Someone asked in surprise. But the next moment, the people in the hall rushed out to check the situation. Chapter 221 Night. When Qin Yang rushed out of the Fu Heihao mansion, he saw the dust and smoke rolling up like a dragon, and the black dragon flags were rolling in the dust and smoke. Nearly 1,000 heavy cavalrymen covered with black dragon armor rushed over, with murderous aura and terrifying power. The violent shaking of the ground was caused by these heavy cavalrymen charging and trampling the earth. Northern Dragon Heavy Cavalry. Len Kang uttered 4 words. Where did they come from? Qin Yang asked. These are the elite cavalry of the Northern Dragon Army. The armor weighs hundreds of pounds, and at least requires key gathering to bear it. Once the formation is charged, not to mention the internal breath warriors, even if the master warriors are trapped, they will not be able to escape death. Len Kang said in a deep voice. The predecessor of the Northern Dragon Army was the Fu Hei Army, which was actually controlled by the Fu Heihao Mansion. In recent years, it has been stationed at the border of Yangning Prefecture to prevent the invasion of the Nandmang alien race. However, this time the Fu Heihao passed away, and it was also natural for the commander-in-chief of the Northern Dragon Army to come back. Qin Yang narrowed his eyes and looked. He saw that the Beijiao heavy cavalry was led by a man with a strong physique, a tough face, and a bit of cruelty. When approaching the Fu Hei Marquis's mansion, the Beijiao heavy cavalry slowly slowed down and stopped in front of the mansion. Hello, young Marquis. The people of Fu Hei Marquis's mansion had been waiting in front of the door. Seeing the leader dismount, they all knelt down to greet him. "Uncle Lee, you have worked hard." He nodded gently to the rich old man. "This is what this old servant should do." The rich old man smiled. "Let's talk about it first," the young marquis said casually. The rich old man hurriedly took the young marquis into the mansion. As for the Beijao heavy cavalry, they were stationed in a nearby open space. The young marquis is called Qin Yang, the only grandson of Fuhei Marquis, and he has been called the young marquis since he was a child. This time, when Fuhei Marquis dies, after reporting to the court, he should inherit the title of Fuhei Marquis. Leng Kang explained softly. "This guy seems very strong." Qin Yang felt a strong bloody aura from the young marquis. Of course, he was sent to the border of Yangning by Fuhei Hao when he was 13 years old, fighting with the Nandmang tribe day and night. Now his cultivation should have reached the 5 keys converging to the origin realm. "This talent is not much weaker than yours." Leng Kang smiled. "Qin Yuan." Qin Yang recited the name of the young marquis. He suddenly asked again, "Who is that Li Bo in Fuhei Hao mansion?" He found that the wealthy old man seemed to have a very high status among Fuhei Hao. His name is Li Chen, and his position is a steward of Fuhei Hao mansion. Since Fuhei Hao returned to his hometown to retire, he has been serving in Fuhei Hao mansion. In many rumors, this Li Chen may be the first owner of the Blackfish Tower. You better be careful. Leng Kang smiled. The grievances between Qin Yang and the Blackfish Tower can be said to have a long history. From Shan County City to Yangning Prefecture City. That's well hidden. I didn't sense any killing intent from him. Qin Yang smiled. These old guys are really well hidden. Leng Kang nodded. The commotion caused by the young marquis's return subsided. After everyone returned to the reception hall, the people from Fuhei Marquis's mansion arranged accommodation for them one after another. Qin Yang, Leng Kang and others were assigned to a courtyard. This courtyard happened to have 4 side rooms, just enough for one person. Qin Yang practiced Bidao Zen Wuzhu and Gong in the room, constantly radiating cold air. Time passed slowly. Fuhei Marquis's mansion did not quiet down. The obscure and ancient chanting of the sutras for salvation had never stopped. Instead, it became clearer after entering the middle of the night. Fuhei Marquis's salvation ritual would last for 3 consecutive days and 3 nights. There were also some copper bells and gongs. Basically, it was difficult to fall asleep. Another courtyard. Damn Qin Yang. Wu Hei was lying on the bed. His right hand had been smashed by Qin Yang's punch and could only be amputated. As for his chest, many ribs were also broken and bandaged with white cloth. But Qin Yang's Bidao Zen Wu Yuan Qi was too cold and fierce, like a series of ice nails, piercing deep into his flesh and blood, causing him extreme pain, as if he had fallen into an icy hell. It would take at least half a month to dissolve these Yuan Qi. Bang bang suddenly. A knock on the door broke the wind and rain. "Come in. The door is not locked." Wu Hei shook his head. He thought it was someone from his family who came to check on his injuries. Creak when the door was pushed open. A stream of wind and rain instantly rushed in. A figure whose face could not be seen clearly walked into the room. Wu Hei turned around and took a look and whispered, "Why are you here again?" The person who came was Wu Qian, but he had clearly come once half an hour ago. Wu Qian turned around without saying a word, closed the door again, and then walked to Wu Hei's bed. Wu Hei felt something was wrong. Wu Qian's movements and demeanor were very stiff, and his breath was also very strange. And there were still water drops on his body. According to Wu Qian's cultivation, he should be able to use his body protecting energy to isolate himself, so there is no need to get wet in the rain. "Wu Qian, you." Wu Hei was about to speak. But the next moment, Wu Qian's head slid off his body and fell on Wu Hei's chest. The head could still make expressions, showing Wu Hei a weird smile. "No no." Wu Hei screamed in horror. The next moment, Wu Qian's head suddenly opened its mouth and bit his neck hard. After a while, Wu Hei's door opened again. This time, Wu Hei and Wu Qian walked out together. They had no expression on their faces, their heads drooped slightly, and their faces disappeared into the darkness. In the rainy night, they knocked on another door. Boom. Qin Yang, who was practicing, suddenly heard a thunder. In the middle of the night, a strong wind suddenly blew, and heavy rain fell. Bean-sized raindrops fell madly on the tiles. Such heavy rain. Qin Yang got up from the bed and pushed open the window to see how heavy the rain was. Suddenly, someone's dead. A sharp female voice tore through the rainy night. Qin Yang was stunned and walked out of the room immediately. Len Kang, Ma Cheng, and Zhao Dingshan were also startled by the scream and walked out of the room. I didn't expect it to be so uneasy on the first night. Len Kang shook his head slightly. Let's go and see first. Ma Cheng smiled. The four of them all circulated their vital energy to protect their bodies, isolating the raindrops from the outside world, and walked towards the source of the scream. When they came to a garden, they saw that a large number of people had gathered. Li Chen, the housekeeper of Fu Heihao Mansion, also rushed over. Not to mention the 9 great families, they rushed over at the first time. Boom. A flash of lightning passed by. Qin Yang instantly saw the state of the garden. On an old tree in the garden, there were more than a dozen bloody and hideous heads hanging. The raindrops fell on the heads of these people, mixed with blood and continuously dripped down to the ground, staining a large area red. Qin Yang recognized 2 of these heads. Wu Qian and Wu Hei. As for the other heads, Qin Yang had never seen them, but he had an excellent memory and remembered that these people were standing near Wu Qian at the time, so they should also be from the Wu family. Chapter 222 Investigation. In the pavilion of the garden, a maid huddled up in a ball, trembling. Li Chen tried to comfort her first, then asked about the situation. I was thinking of going back to rest for a while. When I passed the garden, there was a lightning bolt, and I saw the heads hanging on the trees. The maid's lips turned pale with fear, and she said tremblingly. Shen Sangxiu looked at the dozen heads of the Wu family with a gloomy face. Li Changkang pointed the finger directly at Qin Yang. Qin Yang, did you do it? He shouted. Yes, you and Wu Heigang had a conflict in the reception hall today. I didn't expect you to be so cruel and kill all the people of the Wu family. The people of the noble families also echoed. Qin Yang sneered disdainfully. If I can kill more than a dozen people silently, I will definitely kill all your Li family first. Li Chen also knew that Qin Yang was very powerful, but it is difficult to kill more than a dozen people silently. Even if Len Kang, Zhao Dingshan, and Ma Cheng acted together, it would not work. Li Changkang sneered. Who else could it be except you? Qin Yang shook his head and said, maybe it's the internal strife of your 9 great families? Don't your families like to do this kind of thing the most? Zhao Dingshan sneered. I will report this matter to the young Marquis and investigate it thoroughly. Please go back first. Li Chen saw that the people from the patrol department and the families were arguing again, and he felt a headache and said hurriedly, I want to see these heads. Shen Sangxiu said, me too. Len Kang said the same. Okay, but I hope you can restrain yourself. Li Chen reminded. Shen Sangxiu nodded. Of course there is no problem. After that, he came to the old tree and observed the dozen bloody heads. Qin Yang and Len Kang also went to check. There are bite marks on the neck. They should have bitten the neck alive and then hung the head on it. Len Kang looked at the head hanging on the old tree and said to himself. He has been in the patrol department for so long, and his eyes are vicious. Normally, ordinary people cannot replicate such wounds. Only brutal and bloody evil spirits can create such injuries. There are still some footprints on the ground that have not been washed away by the rain. There are quite a lot of these footprints. Qin Yang looked at the footprints on the ground and said softly. Among these footprints, one is very small, which should be caused by the maid. As for the other footprints, they are deeply sunken in the mud. When walking, it seems very heavy. These footprints. Should Wu Qian and others come over and hang their heads on it? Len Kang tried to simulate these footprints and finally came to a very strange conclusion. This conclusion made everyone present feel a chill. Hang your head on it? Even a warrior who has experienced hundreds of battles finds it a bit absurd and terrifying. But these words came from Len Kang's mouth. Who is this? This person is the director of the Sky Patrol and Evil Punishment Department. Although there are grievances between the 2 sides, investigating these things is Len Kang's specialty. Even Shen Sangxiu did not interrupt. If they really hang their heads up there, where did the bodies go? Li Chen couldn't help asking. The bodies. Len Kang looked at the footprints on the ground and frowned slightly. Because the footprints disappeared near the old tree. Qin Yang smiled and said, maybe they were eaten. Li Changkang said lightly, why didn't they eat the heads too? Because the evil spirits are not as disgusting as you, and they even want to eat the heads. Qin Yang sneered. It's possible that the evil spirits only like to eat the bodies, not the heads. Len Kang said softly. Evil spirits appeared in the mansion? Li Chen frowned. He didn't expect that after the death of Fu Heihao, the mansion would become restless so quickly, and even evil spirits appeared. Don't worry, with our patrol sky division here, we will definitely not let the evil spirits wreak havoc. Leave it to us to investigate. Ma Cheng smiled. Li Chen decisively refused. Don't bother the people from the patrol department. We can handle this matter in the Fu Hei Marquis mansion. This matter is so strange. Maybe there is some hidden secret, so naturally we can't let the patrol department intervene. Besides, I don't know what Andy's intention is to let them walk around in the mansion. Len Kang secretly said it was a pity. If Li Chen agreed, they could use this excuse to approach the Fu Hei Marquis's morning hall. This old fox is still too cautious. After a while, everyone dispersed from the garden, but their expressions became very serious. More than a dozen people from the Wu family were killed, which made them feel that the Fu Hei Marquis mansion was full of danger and murderous intent. Qin Yang and the other four came to Len Kang's room. Ma Cheng leaned against the door and window, paying attention to whether there was any eavesdropping nearby. I don't know who did it this time, when the Wu family was killed. Len Kang said softly. How could the Fu Hei Marquis mansion suddenly have evil spirits? Of course, someone secretly manipulated it. He was able to kill Wu Hei, Wu Kan and others silently. I'm afraid it's a spiritual master in the Yingpo realm. Zhao Dingshan said in a serious tone. This spiritual master in the Shenpo realm has 3 realms. Jingpo, Yingpo and Shenpo. A Yingpo spiritual master is equivalent to a spiritual master with 5 ki. But the number of spiritual masters is far less than that of warriors. In the Zuanling department of the patrol department, only Zuan Khan is at the Yingpo realm. In short, Fu Hei Mansion will definitely be restless these days. We must be extra careful, Len Kang reminded. Qin Yang and others responded. One night passed. The next day, the chanting of scriptures, gongs, copper bells and other things in Fu Hei Mansion were still echoing in the mansion, never interrupted. After Qin Yang walked out of the room, he found that Len Kang and others were not in the room, and he didn't know where they went. He didn't care. After walking out of the yard, he walked around Fu Hei Mansion casually, but he didn't walk far. A patrol team stopped in front of Qin Yang. Sir, you cannot enter the area ahead for now. The patrol captain clasped his fists and said, okay. Qin Yang cooperated quite well. After that, he went to other places and encountered obstacles one after another. However, Qin Yang secretly memorized these areas that could not be visited. The Fu Hei Marquis mansion was indeed very large, with many buildings standing in a maze. Qin Yang had walked for more than half an hour and had not yet finished walking. It might be that enemies often meet on a narrow road. When Qin Yang was walking back, he happened to meet Li Changkang and his group. Qin Yang. Li Changkang's face immediately turned cold when he saw Qin Yang. Li Changkang Qin Yang narrowed his eyes. However, both of them knew that they could not fight in the Fu Hei Marquis mansion and could only restrain themselves. At the moment when the two sides passed by each other, Qin Yang's eyes flashed with cruelty. He seemed unable to control his anger. He growled, took a big step, and hit Li Changkang's head with his elbow. Li Changkang never thought that Qin Yang would fight so suddenly and suddenly blocked his body with both hands. Bang! He put his hands together and collided fiercely with Qin Yang's elbow. Chapter 223, Compliments. Bang! The two streams of yuan qi collided fiercely. As the patriarch of the Li family, Li Changkang was naturally not comparable to Wu Hei. He was a great master of the 5 Qis to yuan realm. The 5 Qi are the essence of the 5 internal organs. When the essence of the 5 internal organs circulates at the same time and forms yuan qi, the power is naturally much stronger than the 3 flowers gathering at the top. But Qin Yang's Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong is too terrifying, and he has the advantage of sneak attack. With a bang, Li Changkang was forced back several steps by Qin Yang's elbow. Qin Yang grinned and kicked out with a whip kick. The air exploded and tore. Li Changkang stabilized his feet for a moment, and his right hand slashed from top to bottom like a knife. It chopped Qin Yang's shin bone fiercely. With a bang, the yuan qi on Qin Yang's surface was directly cut open, and a hole was cut in his flesh and blood. but Li Changkang was pulled out several meters by Qin Yang's whip kick again. Qin Yang, you are looking for death. You dare to attack in broad daylight. I think you are looking for death. The people of the Li family shouted angrily and attacked Qin Yang fiercely. The dense fists and leg shadows instantly enveloped Qin Yang. Qin Yang laughed loudly, showing his unparalleled strength and hitting the ultimate secret of the dragon elephant fist, dancing wildly. The terrifying heavy fists kept hitting. There was no rules, just one word, chaos. Chaos makes people desperate, because every punch seemed to contain terrifying divine power, crushing the Li family like a dead tree and rotten wood. Figures were blown away one after another. Suddenly, Qin Yang felt a thrilling murderous intent and instinctively punched to the left. Bang! Li Changkang's hand knife just came and collided with Qin Yang's iron fist. The two of them instantly entangled and killed each other. Boom! Exclamation mark. The terrifying and ferocious vitality continued to spread, the floor burst and exploded, and the sound even covered the chanting of the Marquis's mansion. Not long after, someone was alarmed and rushed over. Shen Sangxi, who looked at the fight between Qin Yang and Li Changkang, frowned slightly, but did not make a move. Zheng Yuanxi and Mo Yunfen, who came later, also stood by and watched. Because Leng Kang and Zhao Dingshan also appeared, the patrol team of Fu Heihao Mansion kept gathering here. But when they arrived, they saw the two sides fighting, and they were very helpless and powerless. Their strength was not enough to get involved. After a while, Li Chen finally appeared. In addition to him, there was also the young Marquis, Qi Yuan. Enough. Qi Yuan roared, his figure flashed, and he joined the battle directly. His hands were wrapped in blood and hit Qin Yang and Li Changkang fiercely. The two avoided at the same time, and did not fight again. Are you two here to mourn, or are you here to cause trouble in my Fu Heihao mansion? Qi Yuan asked coldly. Young Marquis, I don't want to cause trouble myself. This time, Qin Yang attacked first. Li Changkang snorted coldly, and the murderous intent in his eyes had not dissipated. If Qi Yuan had come a little later, he would have been able to seize Qin Yang's weakness. Even if he couldn't kill him, he could at least cripple him. But all this was broken by Qi Yuan's sudden appearance. It was you who attacked me first, because you had more people. Qin Yang sneered. You're talking nonsense. We saw with our own eyes that you attacked the head of the family first. You are so shameless, and you are confusing right and wrong. The people of the Li family shouted and scolded. You Li family are really good at cheating. Do you think you can make trouble just because you have more people? Qin Yang sneered. Qi Yuan frowned slightly. He couldn't tell who was right or wrong for a while, because there was no patrol team at the scene to see the real situation. He didn't know who started it. Enough. I don't care who started it first. After this time, if anyone dares to start it in the Marquis mansion again, don't blame me for not knowing how to treat guests. I will expel him from the Marquis mansion. Qi Yuan heard too many quarrels and said angrily. This time, Li Jia and Qin Yang looked at each other, but could only leave helplessly. On the other side, a figure quietly sneaked into the morning hall. This person was Ma Cheng. All this was discussed by them last night. First, Qin Yang, who seemed to be the most impulsive, looked for an opportunity to cause chaos and attract the guards of Fu Heihao Mansion. Ma Cheng took the opportunity to look for an opportunity to see if he could sneak into the vicinity of the morning hall to see what was going on. But the deeper Ma Cheng sneaked into Fu Heihao Mansion, the more he felt something was wrong. It was too quiet. It's strange. I originally thought that this deep place should be heavily guarded, with guards guarding everywhere. Ma Cheng frowned slightly. He felt a little weird, but he heard the sound of chanting for salvation coming from the depths, and he was curious in his heart, so he continued to sneak in. Soon, Ma Cheng saw a spacious lobby from a distance. The lobby was full of white lanterns and white silk, and the ground was covered with paper money. In broad daylight, you can still see white candlelight burning inside. It's a morning hall at first glance. The chanting of sutras and various other sounds also came from the morning hall. Ma Cheng approached cautiously. He originally thought that the morning hall should be heavily guarded, but in fact, it was the same as outside, with no one guarding it. Ma Cheng came to the left side of the morning hall smoothly. What is going on in the Fu Hei Marquis's mansion? Ma Cheng frowned slightly and gently poked a hole in the window paper. Soon, he saw the situation in the morning hall. A mahogany coffin was placed in the morning hall. Dozens of magicians were surrounding the mahogany coffin, chanting sutras, beating gongs and drums. These magicians were all wearing white mourning clothes, wearing white tall hats, and their heads were drooping, so it was unclear what they looked like. Where did these magicians come from? Ma Cheng frowned slightly. He had lived in Yang Ning's house city for so many years, and had never seen such a scene. He observed for a while, and finally found something strange. These white-robed magicians kept repeating the same movements without any deviation. It was very stiff and rigid, and even looked a little evil. Are these guys not alive? Ma Cheng had a strange thought. He felt that the morning hall was too weird, and he didn't dare to step into it, so he turned around and left. But after turning around, Ma Cheng's scalp was numb and his eyes widened. Behind him, more than a dozen figures wearing mourning clothes and tall white hats appeared silently. The hats of these people were too big, and seemed to cover their heads. Sorry, I was just passing by. I'll go back now. Ma Cheng forced a smile. These guys in white clothes and tall hats just stood there, without making any sound, or paying any attention to Ma Cheng. Ma Cheng became more nervous when he saw this. He quietly circulated his energy, used his body skills, and suddenly rushed out from these weird guys in white clothes and tall hats. And the weird guys in white clothes and tall hats just watched Ma Cheng leave. Ma Cheng went all the way back to the courtyard, where his room was. It was a close call. That morning hall was really weird and strange. Ma Cheng was still frightened. He saw that Leng Kang and Qin Yang had not returned yet, so he planned to go back to his room to rest first. Creak. The moment he opened the door, he trembled as if struck by lightning. A mahogany coffin appeared in his eyes. Near the mahogany coffin, there were a dozen strange guys in white clothes and tall hats. They raised their heads and looked towards Ma Cheng. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224, Shocking Change. Ma Cheng is missing. In Leng Kang's room, Qin Yang was somewhat suspicious. With Ma Cheng's strength, even if he encountered any danger and couldn't get away, it should be easy for him to make some noise. According to the agreement, he will come back at the latest in the evening. Now it's almost dark, far beyond this time. Leng Kang frowned. This Fu Hei Hao mansion is really weird. Even Ma Cheng disappeared silently. Zhao Dingshan was a little terrified. At present, it seems that this Fu Hei Hao mansion is getting more and more dangerous. I'll go out and pass the message to Si Shao later. You must be careful in the room, Leng Kang said in a deep voice. Qin Yang and Zhao Dingshan responded. The three of them left the house at the same time. Leng Kang walked outside Fu Hei Hao mansion. Qin Yang and Zhao Ding returned to their own rooms. Not long after, it was completely dark. Qin Yang lit a candle and placed it by the window. Looking at the dark courtyard outside, his eyes flickered. The only thing in his ears was the sound of the never-ending chanting of sutras for the salvation of souls, as well as the sounds of bells and gongs. It seems that, even if this Fu Hei Hao is really dead, he doesn't want us to rest in peace. Qin Yang muttered to himself. First, the people of the Wu family were silenced, and then Ma Cheng disappeared. He felt that the Fu Hei Hao mansion had become a man-eating demon cave. Man-eating demon cave? Questioning Heart Temple? No. Qin Yang thought of something, and his expression froze. However, he had to wait for Leng Kang to come back before telling him about this speculation. It was just this wait. It took an hour. Qin Yang guarded the window for so long, but he didn't wait for Leng Kang to come back. It seems that he really wants to eat us, Qin Yang muttered to himself. He picked up the Hanua knife casually, walked to Zhao Dingshan's room, and knocked on the door gently. Zhao Dingshan seemed to be asleep and didn't respond. But Qin Yang knew that for a warrior with 5 key to the origin, this was impossible. Bang! He kicked hard. The door was instantly shattered and exploded. Qin Yang strode into the room. The dark room was empty. Zhao Dingshan also disappeared quietly. It's impossible. I was just observing the situation in the courtyard. If Zhao Dingshan left, I should have noticed it. Qin Yang frowned slightly. He searched the room carefully. No signs of fighting were found. It seems that the Fuheihao mansion is more cruel than the Wenzin temple when it comes to eating people. Qin Yang muttered to himself. He left Zhao Dingshan's room, but did not return to his own room. He knew that he could not stay here any longer. See if I can leave this Fuheihao mansion. Qin Yang planned to leave here first. After walking around Fuheihao mansion for so long today, he was familiar with the terrain here. After walking out of the courtyard, he walked towards the gate. Where did everyone go? As Qin Yang walked, he felt that Fuheihao mansion was dead and lifeless, and the white lanterns hanging under the eaves looked even more eerie. Moreover, there were nearly 1,000 people in Fuheihao mansion, but he didn't see any of them. You know, it's the vigil stage now. Most people should not be sleeping. Even if everyone is in the morning hall, there should be a patrol team. But Qin Yang has been walking for so long, but he didn't see anyone. Just as he was passing through a corridor, a footstep came from behind. Qin Yang turned around vigilantly. Qin Yang, I finally found you. Zhao Dingshan looked at Qin Yang in front of him, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Where did you go just now? Seeing that it was Zhao Dingshan, Qin Yang relaxed his vigilance. I was in the house just now, and suddenly saw a black shadow flashing through my window. I chased it out. But as I chased it, the black shadow disappeared. Zhao Dingshan shook his head. By the way, I just saw your son Zhao Fan. Qin Yang said suddenly. Zhao Fan? Why is he here too? Zhao Dingshan said in surprise. You can ask him, and you will know. Qin Yang smiled. Then where is he now? Zhao Dingshan asked. In your heart. Qin Yang smiled strangely. The next moment, a cold and sharp platinum energy burst out from his body, and his palms blasted out like a series of lightning. Zhao Dingshan was caught off guard. He did not expect Qin Yang to suddenly attack him, and his chest was hit repeatedly. His flesh and bones were all broken. The Bidao Zen Wu energy still contained the power to suppress evil, and Zhao Dingshan's body was covered with black smoke. It is indeed an evil spirit. Qin Yang roared, and pressed his palm hard on Zhao Dingshan's crown. Bang! The whole head was smashed by a palm, and turned into black gas and dissipated. Qin Yang's face became more solemn. This Fuheihao mansion now seems to have become a ghost den, and all kinds of evil spirits will appear. He continued to walk towards the gate of Fuheihao mansion. When he turned into a corridor, he frowned immediately. He was actually back to the courtyard, where he was originally. He seemed to have made a big circle in Fuheihao mansion. But in fact, with Qin Yang's sense of direction, this was naturally impossible. It seems that he really intends to eat everyone. Qin Yang narrowed his eyes. He turned around and left the courtyard again, walking towards another place. As he walked, Qin Yang met a few more people. These people looked a little flustered, as if they were avoiding something, and they just happened to run into Qin Yang. Qin Yang. Li Changkang? Two exclamations sounded at the same time. Qin Yang's eyes were strange. He was really destined to be in conflict with Li Changkang. How could he run into him? Li Changkang saw Qin Yang, and his eyes gradually became cold. Qin Yang, this time you don't have Len Kang to support you. Li Changkang smiled grimly when he saw Qin Yang, who was alone. He also noticed the abnormal situation in Fuheihao mansion, and brought people out to check. But for some reason, there were fewer and fewer people behind him, which made Li Changkang more and more panicked. Just at this time, they ran into Qin Yang. The hatred for the murder of his son instantly surged into his heart, and his eyes were bloodshot. You won't be so lucky this time. Qin Yang smiled, and drew out the Hanyu knife from his bag. Clang. Li Changkang also drew out his own weapon, a purple-butted broadsword with a tiger head on the handle, ferocious and fierce. You are so arrogant, because I couldn't use the knife today. This time, I will chop off your head within 30 moves to avenge me. Li Changkang's face was sinister. Purple energy burst out from his body, forming a purple tiger behind him, roaring to the sky. The terrifying and fierce energy suppressed Qin Yang fiercely. Qin Yang also urged his own energy to manifest the phantom of an ancient beast with a dragon head, a turtle body and a snake tail, roaring at the purple tiger. Bang! It turned out that Li Changkang's energy was suppressed. You know, he is a warrior in the 5 Kiss to Yuan realm. Impossible. Li Changkang gritted his teeth. He felt that this was the magic of Qin Yang's practice. He stepped forward, and with the purple knife in his hand, he pounced out like a tiger. Chapter 225 Tree. Swish, a purple blade suddenly swept across more than 10 meters, slashing towards Qin Yang fiercely. Qin Yang shouted, opening the moment of unparalleled strength. The surging blood and ki made his body swell up. His muscles seemed to be coiled like dragons and snakes. Large patches of blood vessels appeared and bulged, and the extremely cold and sharp Bidao Zen Wu Yuan Qi wrapped around his body, and he swung the knife fiercely. Compared with the beaming black water sutra, the internal energy cultivated by this Bidao Zen Wu Zuan Gong is less profound and more sharp and cold, killing intent. This is the characteristic of Bidao, the main death. Evil Flood Dragon, Extreme Evil Heartless Slash. A platinum dragon instantly appeared behind Qin Yang, holding a remnant weapon in its mouth, exuding endless death intent. With the appearance of Bidao Zen Wu Yuan Qi, the power of this evil dragon swallowing evil knife also increased. Boom. The two long swords slashed at each other fiercely. The purple and platinum Yuan Qi suddenly collapsed and spread. Li Changkang felt that both his hands were stabbed by the platinum energy, and the skin and flesh on his palms were cut, and blood kept dripping. Qin Yang grinned, and the cold abyss knife suddenly turned into an endless black wave, slapping towards Li Changkang frantically. Evil Dragon Black Sea Devouring Wave Kill. The endless cold and sharp knife intent enveloped Li Changkang. Ding ding ding. Li Changkang opened his eyes angrily, bursting his own energy to the limit, and displayed the family's unique purple tiger knife method to resist this terrible killing intent. The two long swords kept entangled with each other, as if a dragon was fighting a tiger, and it was extremely fierce. The knife light continued to spread and shoot out, cutting and crushing the floor tiles. Seeing this situation, the remaining few people in the Li family wanted to get involved to help Li Changkang, but they couldn't do it. 5 Kiss converged to the origin. Li Changkang was very frustrated after being beaten. Qin Yang's strength was really terrible. He could only roar wildly and burst out the energy of his 5 internal organs fiercely. I have it too. Qin Yang laughed wildly, and his fingers quickly touched the center of his eyebrows, heart and lower abdomen. 3 flowers gather at the top of the head. Open. Boom. This is the first time Qin Yang opened the 3 flowers gather at the top of the head. He felt that his vitality surged again, and his strength and vitality seemed to be endless. The swelling made him want to vent wildly. Kill. Qin Yang chopped wildly, and the cold abyss knife wrapped in the white gold light of death, covering Li Changkang. The two sides fought fiercely. Boom. The ground under their feet suddenly collapsed. Li Changkang wailed, and the purple knife in his hand was chopped off by Qin Yang. At the same time, Qin Yang strode forward, and the cold abyss knife stabbed forward. Li Changkang suddenly urged his hands to clasp together, clamping the cold abyss knife tightly. A terrifying whip kick hit Li Changkang's waist and abdomen fiercely. Dragon Elephant Infinite Heavy Whip. Bang. Li Changkang was protected by the purple tiger vitality, which weakened the power of this kick, but his internal organs were still impacted, and his mouth and nose were bleeding. Qin Yang laughed grimly, and headbutted Li Changkang. The Wulian Heavy Whip can work on the bones of the whole body. Boom. It hit Li Changkang's forehead hard, causing his head to bleed. Suffering such a heavy blow, the hands holding the Hanua knife loosened a little. The next moment, Qin Yang's Hanua knife was like a dragon, stabbing into Li Changkang's heart fiercely. Bidao Zen Wu's vitality suddenly poured in, as if it turned into countless cold knives, instantly strangling his internal organs. Li Changkang's eyes couldn't help but shed tears of blood, looking at Qin Yang with resentment. Puff. The next moment, Qin Yang drew out the Hanua knife, cut off Li Changkang's head with one knife, and crushed it with one foot. Boom. The ground shook. Several people from the Li family were so scared that their hearts and gallbladders were about to burst, and their minds were blank. Qin Yang swung the knife and attacked, killing them one by one. The bloody smell spread and rose. Qin Yang didn't even look at it, and shook his wrist to disperse the blood on the Hanua knife. I didn't expect that the master of the 5 Kiss is just like this. Qin Yang shook his head slightly. He is really powerful now. The magical powers formed after the perfection of various martial arts are constantly blessed, resulting in much stronger energy, blood, and spirit than ordinary warriors. He also practiced the forbidden martial arts of Bidao Zen Wu Zuan Gong. Just after breaking through to the 3 flowers gathering at the top, he easily killed Li Changkang, who was in the 5 Kiss gathering at the top. You know, Qin Yang has not been pushed to the limit. Qin Yang looked at the nearby terrain and went towards the gate again. But just after he passed through a courtyard, he found that he had walked into the garden from last night. The old tree is still there. There are more heads hanging on the tree than last night. There were only a dozen heads of the Wu family last night, but now there are dozens. Hanging on the old tree, densely packed and bloody. Under the reflection of the white moon, it is creepy and gloomy. Qin Yang took a look and found that these heads were all from the 9 great families. I know where those bodies went. You probably ate them. Qin Yang looked at the old tree and muttered to himself. At this moment, another footstep sounded from the garden corridor. Shen Sangxiu emerged from the shadows in the corridor. He saw Qin Yang in the garden and was slightly stunned. Deputy Chief Shen. What a coincidence. Qin Yang also narrowed his eyes. Shen Sangxiu looked at Qin Yang as if to confirm whether the other party was an evil spirit. Besides, both parties knew that the person in front of them was not an evil spirit. Have you seen anyone from our Shen family? Shen Sangxiu asked. No. Supervisor Leng and I are also lost. There is something wrong with the Fuhei Marquis mansion. Qin Yang shook his head. Yeah, but why did the Fuhei Marquis mansion become like this? Shen Sangxiu frowned. He did not have much hostility towards Qin Yang. Besides, he was in such a dangerous environment, so he did not want to fight with Qin Yang. The death of Marquis Fuhei was a trap in itself. Marquis Fuhei used the news of his death to attract people from the patrol department and the 9 great families. Then, he ate us. Qin Yang said indifferently. Eat us? Could it be that Marquis Fuhei wanted to hold some kind of evil ceremony? Shen Sangxiu thought for a while. It should be that he wanted to hold some kind of evil ceremony, but I don't know what the purpose is. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. This old Marquis is really calculating. This move has us all calculated. Shen Sangxiu shook his head. He suddenly. The dozens of heads hanging on the old tree suddenly laughed eerily. They made all kinds of exaggerated and grotesque expressions, suddenly flew up and rushed towards Qin Yang and Shen Sangxiu. How disgusting. Qin Yang shook his head and swung his knife to chop at these heads. The platinum knife light continued to rage, containing the power to suppress evil, and was the nemesis of these evil heads. One by one, the heads were chopped off by him. Shen Sangxiu held a white jade flute in one hand and poked it out quickly. Swish, swish, swish. Countless white light shadows formed in an instant, covering these evil heads and smashing them continuously. The two joined forces. Dozens of evil heads were killed in the blink of an eye. The garden returned to silence. But soon, the old tree under the white moonlight suddenly exuded an evil aura. The branches swelled up and tumors grew. These tumors were extremely disgusting, quickly grew larger, and then exploded. A dead head suddenly emerged. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.